शिरोदिनि वासिनि विष्णुविलासिनि जिष्णुनुते भगवति हेशिति कण्ठकुटुम्बिनि भूरि कुटुम्बिनि भूरि कृते जय जय हे महिषासुरमर्दिनि रम्यकपर्दिनि शैलसुते सुरवरवर्षिणि दुर्धरदर्शिनि दुर्मुखमर्षिणि हर्षरते त्रिभुवनपोषिणि शङ्करतोषिणि किल्बिषमोषिनि घोषरते धनुजनिरोषिणि दिथिशुकरोषिनि दुर्मथतोषिनि सिन्धुसुते जय जय हे महिषासुरमर्दिनि रम्यकपर्दिनि शैलसुते जय जय हे महिषासुरमर्दिनि रम्यकपर्दिनि शैलसुते जय जय हे महिषासुरमर्दिनि रम्यकपर्दिनि शैलसुते
Hi guys, thank you for joining the live stream. I hope the audio is coming fine. Let us know if there's any problem with the audio. So today we have back with us for the third time Professor Dr. Kausik Gangopadhyay of IIM-K and a professor of economics and a fellow Thomas Sowell fan as well. So thank you for joining us again, Professor.
Thank you and thanks for having me.
Yeah. And guys, if you don't know yet, this is a book by Professor Gangopadhyay, The Majoritarian Myth, which is one of those books that helps you never lose a debate ever again with a commie. This is an incredible, groundbreaking book that destroys the myth of majoritarianism, the myth on which most of our commie arguments in the country are based on, probably all over the world. And he absolutely destroys that argument. So, sir, today we are going to basically get into 6 core topics. Of course, all surrounded around the concept of Hindurashtra, because there are a lot of ambiguities about what would be actually the nature of Hindurashtra, what would be its essence, what would it look like? Does it mean kicking away all Muslims? Does it mean a genocide of non-Hindus? Does it mean just another secular democracy? Does it mean monarchy? Does it mean equal rights for all, etc.? We will get into your opinion on all of these things. But mainly I was... the thought came to my mind to discuss this with Sir Professor Kausik Gangopadhyay, because the end portion of his book, Majoritarian Myth, is entirely about Satya and Ahimsa. And he points out that how they have been basically explained to us in a wrong way. So a lot of us get spooked with the word Ahimsa these days, but there is actually more to it than that. Sir, first I'm going to ask you what is Satya, then we'll get into what is Ahimsa, then what would be the nature of Hindurashtra, then we will discuss what would be the economics of Hindurashtra, freebie versus welfare versus markets, then what would be the concept of Jati Varna, if at all there needs to be any concept, and then what would be the nature of reservations in such a Hindurashtra. Okay. So, sir.
Please go ahead.
Sir. So, sir, first of all, what is Satya?
Yeah. So, Satya is basically comes from the word Sat. Sat means that exists.
Okay.
So basically, whatever exists in this world, that is kind of Sat. I mean, it will wrongly kind of translate it as truth, but truth has a very different connotation. Truth comes with a moral connotation in the original Christian literature and everywhere. So it's called veritas in Latin. We still use the word verily, right? So basically, the word veri comes from the veritas. So basically, gives a moral approval. Not everything that exists in this world are true. So basically, if you see the Christian idea, their God is the true God. Whereas the pagan gods, they are not real true gods, right? These are demons, demonic god, demons, or whatever you call it.
Yeah.
But these are false gods, right? So they also understand, or at least agree, that these demons could have some power, right? You see the Hollywood horror movies, the demons. I mean, they sort of agree, accept that they have some powers. But these are not coming with a moral sanction, and that's why they kind of denounce it as false. But when you say this Satya in our Indian or Bharatiya or whatever Indic phrase, it does not come with any moral sanction. We are not looking at this world with a moral lens. We are saying whatever exists, it has some role. and everything has some good, has some bad, right? So that's sort of
Hmm.
the understanding. It could
Hmm.
be different. Some things are much more good than bad, and other things could be different ways.
Right.
But
Hmm.
nothing actually comes with equivalent to falsehood. So we
Okay.
have like yeah, different gods like Bhuta, Preta, and all these things. I mean, these demigods or whatever you call it. But they are
Right.
also coming. They are also part of Satya.
Right. Sir, are you using a webcam or a laptop camera?
This is a webcam actually.
Okay, could you put it a little down so that your head comes up a little more? Yeah, yeah. This looks better so that our faces
Huh.
are on the equal height. So
Actually,
that looks
I
nicer.
could increase the height of the
Yeah, yeah,
chair.
yeah, yeah. That would be better.
Let me see that. How does it happen? Oops. Yeah. How do you like it?
Yeah, yeah, much better.
Huh. Yeah. Tell
Uh,
me.
do you need to fix the ring light that moved away?
Right.
Yeah,
So I'll fix it. Thank you.
yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So,
Huh.
sir, what about facades of different things? Are facades also important? By your definition of Satya, facades also, I guess, come in that as well. Let's say facade of niceties of diplomacy. The
Hmm.
let's say the facade of let's say prime minister congratulating the chief minister on winning, whereas their political party supporters are killing each other on the grounds. Are those facades important? Are those true?
So protocols, right? You are talking about. Huh. So protocols are like something called Sheila. So you
Okay.
see, we have this Panchashila, right? Nehruji used to
Hmm.
say. So
Yeah.
this Sila means sort of like a um, good manners, you might say.
Hmm.
Now,
Right.
manners are of course important, but they are subservient to Satya. So that is sort of the
Right.
so there are a lot of so it is not as easy concept Satya as we understand,
Yeah.
because you see sometimes it is possible, like Churchill said, the truth has to be protected by the bodyguard of lies. So so sort of like that
Exactly.
idea is also there sometimes.
Exactly.
Even in great people in India, they also used a little bit of lies in the interest of truth.
Right.
Like for example, if you see Mahabharata, right? Dharmaraj Yudhishthir, he was a paragon of truth, right? Satya,
Hmm.
in some
Yeah.
sense, right? I'm just
Yeah.
using interchangeably because
Yeah.
most
Yeah.
people will, but of
Yeah.
course we have to understand they are not same.
Yeah.
But then of course, but then he lied, right? He lied for Ashwathama Hataiti Gaja
Hmm.
because it was in the interest of the truth, in the interest of sort of like the civilization to exist. That's again a satya, right? The
Yeah.
sustainability of the civilization. For
Right.
he has to speak a lie, and he did that. So it is
Right.
a lot of issues are there. Maybe I can talk about in connotation with ahimsa,
Yeah.
how these two values are kind of has to be compromised or kind of in, up
Yeah.
and down here and there.
Yeah. Yeah. Uh, Sir, how? What was Gandhiji's interpretation of truth? I mean, translation of Satya as truth, and how correct was he?
So Gandhiji, actually, the problem with Gandhiji was that he was not a deep scholar. I mean, I respect him a lot of sense. Then probably the audience, most of them do. So,
Hmm.
but Gandhiji, I think the positive thing about Gandhiji is he sort of understood one, our jati, our civilization has to get the roots, come back to the roots and kind of search for it. Having said that, he was not a great scholar of Indic Shastras. His understanding of our Shastras, our classical texts, our civilizational texts was not very deep.
Okay.
He himself wrote that he got most of his ideas from Rousseau. Sorry,
I
not
see.
Rousseau. Tolstoy.
I
Tolstoy. So
see.
Russian
Yeah.
Christianity,
Yeah.
and basically there's a lot of so Russian Christian tropes are sort of very similar in some sense to
Hmm.
like Vaishnava, right? Of Vaishnava, like
Hmm.
we have these Chaitanya ideas and all these kind of things, but they
Okay.
are only one particular dimension of
Yeah.
our civilization. We have like also Shakta texts, right? Like Mahishasur
Right.
Mardani. I love when you start your podcast with that one.
Yeah.
So those things got lost because Gandhiji did not have a very balanced perspective on that. He just
Hmm.
did on one way, and
Yeah.
that's how the problem with that he sort of tried to equate truth, and went by very much a lot of Christian perception. For example, he himself said this entire Mahabharata and Ramayana did not happen. All these things is allegorical. Now that is
Okay.
not what we feel like. We feel
Hmm.
like whenever something is given, it
Hmm.
works in multiple layers, but the physical layer is not wrong. It is happening definitely in the physical layer, but it could have even more other subtle connotations in different
Yeah.
other layers in mental plane and everything. But
Right.
so that's why I'm saying the Gandhiji is in a bit he lost idea of satta because he
Hmm.
was looking at a moral sanction. Because
Hmm.
for him his point of view, violence is sort of reprehensible. So he shuddered to think that this Krishna was actually committing actual physical violence, right? And that's how
Hmm.
he had to conclude that entire thing was a figment of imagination. They did not
Hmm.
happen in this world, but still they are true in some sense. That is a
Right.
very much a Christian idea. Our idea
Right.
is actually they actually happen, and we have to take lessons from that.
Right. And what is ahimsa then?
So ahimsa again. So basically, you see, we have two parts of the brain, right? One is one guides the called knowledge part of the brain. It's basically called the left brain, right? And the activity part is called the right brain. So the knowledge part is has to be guided by satta, right? So there's a big problem now. We know workism in the American academia. So the
Yeah.
reason is they actually are getting deviated. They are deviating from the path of satya. They are going by the
Yeah.
notion what they call it post-truth. They also know that these are
Hmm.
not truth. I mean,
Yeah.
because truth has become almost synonymous with reality now. So they know
Yeah.
these are not truth. These are post-truths, right? And they
Yeah.
are not guided by what actually happens, right? But whether actually there is a difference between man and woman, they don't care. So they have
Hmm.
to show that everything is equal. That's the
Yeah.
post-truth. And because
Yeah.
of that, they have to, whatever science they are coming up with, they have to negate everything.
Yeah.
So same idea. So basically, human knowledge it has to be always guided by the reality. You
Hmm.
cannot create a world that you think in your head that it's real. Other things are bad. Whatever
Right.
exists in this world, you have to accept it. Similarly,
Yeah.
ahimsa is about action.
Hmm.
Action policy. You can say many things about action policy, but we are saying so. Basically, the West they have values like equality, liberty, fraternity. Those we are
Hmm.
kind of enshrined in the our preamble, but these are actually
Yeah.
Western values.
Right.
Now, their values are guided by that, their action. Our action is guided by negation of himsa. The himsa is not again a physical violence alone. It
Hmm.
could mean any kind of violence. Suppose I
Hmm.
give you cuss words, that's also violence. Suppose
Hmm.
I say your culture is shit, even though it's not doing anything to me. That's
Hmm.
again violence because I'm kind of needlessly aggressing on your culture and tradition, right? So
Hmm.
all this is part of the ahimsa. And
Hmm.
then it is at one end it does not stop at physical violence, but
Hmm.
at other end it is driven by the goal. So the goal is to negate himsa. Now
Hmm.
how would you negate himsa? That depends on your profession. In one profession you need to actually talk about do your research and how to negate your inner violence, how to remove the negative energy. Nowadays there is a term called negative energy. We used to
Hmm.
call it ripu, the enemy of yours. That has to
Right.
be negated, right? And how
Hmm.
would you do it by what kind of things that can be done. So
Hmm.
that is one kind of way for the scholarly people.
Hmm.
But that's not the only way. There are other ways to, and there are other ways. There has to be other dimensions of negating hingsha. And
Hmm.
this is very, very important. For example, the soldier who is fighting in the battlefield, right? You just remember this movie, Saving Private Ryan. So
Hmm.
all these people, they are coming in this D-Day, right? They are coming in a very kind of terrible situation. They are landing and then they are being received by the machine gun bullets, right? So this
Yeah.
is also in a way, these people
Hmm.
are also fighting for ahimsa. They are not
Hmm.
fighting for to do violence on someone. They are
Hmm.
just fighting because the violence of Hitler has to be countered, has to be negated. For that,
Right.
you need to do some violence, right? So that
Hmm.
is the idea of Kshatriya.
Hmm.
Kshatriya is basically the word comes someone who actually saves you from your problems. That's kata. Kata means sort of like your any some kind of a skin disease or some kind of an wound,
Okay.
right?
Oh,
Of
okay. Khoto.
Ha,
Bengali
kata,
khoto.
right. I mean, yeah. I'm
Kshato.
just trying to do it a little bit of pure
Yeah.
accent, but yeah.
Yeah.
So basically, the kata has to be removed, right?
Hmm.
So it's like an ulcer or a tumor has to be removed.
Hmm.
So that for
Right.
removing, you need some surgery, right? You need to use
Right.
some surgical weapons, right? This is known
Sure.
from the Sutri times, right?
Yeah.
2,600 years ago from today. And
Right.
then that is again hingsha, right? In a way, right? When you're cutting the thing, some tissues are being destroyed, but that has to
Hmm.
be done. When you are
Hmm.
living, I'm taking this very breath. Maybe some small, organisms are kind of they are suffering, right? So
You
that is also
yourself are bleeding during the surgery.
doing surgery, but even our daily existence, right? The food you
Right.
take and everything, but that has to be accepted, right? That's kind of the idea.
Right.
Now there are different varnas. Varnas are different kinds of people. Now
Hmm.
the code is not same for different kinds of people. Now
Yeah.
for a person who is in scholarly study, for him taking meat and proteins are not important. So
Hmm.
then if you are really taking beef or something that most of the secular scholars do, or I mean meat,
Hmm.
no, forget beef, even meat or
Yeah.
fish, that
Yeah.
that is considered not right. Why?
Hmm.
Because basically for a scholarly profession you don't need so much of activity, you don't need to move around all the time, so you don't
Hmm.
need so much protein. So why
Hmm.
are you perpetrating your hingsha on the other animals, right? It has to be minimized. You can go
Hmm.
for a vegetation based diet, but
Right.
suppose someone is fighting as an army, he needs
Hmm.
protein.
Hmm.
Otherwise, this thing will be done. So basically, Kshatriyas, they need to take that protein, right? They are
Hmm.
supposed to take meat and all these other things.
Hmm. Right.
Similarly, Sudras, they have to also work from morning to night,
Physical labor. Yeah.
physical laborers, right? And then
Hmm.
again, they are actually, for them, it is not important to do these kind of things. So
Hmm.
basically, the more mental profession you go, like
Hmm.
Kshatriyas or Brahmins, so you have to do more focus on mental exercises like
Yeah.
yoga,
Hmm.
sandha, pasana, because then you have to keep yourself mind pure. And if you are
Yeah.
doing physical exercise all the time, your mind almost stays good. So basically,
Hmm.
Sadras, there's no obligation.
Hmm.
But this entire thing comes within this framework of
Hmm.
Satya and Ahimsa.
Hmm.
I have a very nice story from Mahabharata to say, if you permit me
Yeah.
on that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So this is happening. So basically, there's a debate because there's a lot of times when you say two values, there will be contradiction. If
Hmm.
you are really want to be truthful, right? Nowadays, there's a value called diversity and equality.
Hmm.
Of course, we know they are contradictory. So they,
Hmm.
they actually just make an acronym DEI and sort of kind of mitigate it, but that's not the mitigation, right? That's sort of unscientificism or whatever you call
Yeah.
it. Now,
Yeah.
what is happening in our tradition? That's not the case. We won't go by a theory, we go by lived experiences,
Hmm.
and we kind of keep this experience in terms of allegories, parables, in kind of different stories,
Hmm.
Panchatantra, Jataka, Mahabharata, Ramayana, and we try
Hmm.
to get our life experience with one of them and what is the closest coming to my mind, sort of taking guidance from civilization, from the
Hmm.
lived experience of ancestors of ours.
Hmm.
So here it is the story from Mahabharata. So there is a dichotomy between Satya and Ahimsa. I mean, there sometimes, and
Hmm.
then something has to be done.
Hmm.
So this story goes back to the 17th day of the war,
Hmm.
and it is the called Karna Parva.
Hmm.
In the Karna Parva, Karna was leading the Kaurava army,
Hmm.
and Pandava armies are fighting.
Hmm.
And that day was a terrible day for the Pandavas. So basically, this Karna, he was chasing Yudhishthir, and Yudhishthir was getting beaten black and blue, and he was receding. And then Bhima come to the rescue, and some of course saved Yudhishthir, and let him go to, because he's the king, he has to be saved.
Hmm.
If he's caught, then the war will be over, right?
Hmm.
And then basically, then he went back. And meanwhile, Arjuna, he was in another dimension and another place, and he is coming back. And then he comes to the Yudhishthira, and then Yudhishthira says, "Oh, you have come." And then Yudhishthira was very upset. And he says, "I was expecting you. So as you said, so and so times when we are in Banvas, that you will
Hmm.
kill Karna, you will do everything yourself. And now where are you? I was wearing black and blue, and then basically this Bhima, he was somehow saved me. And you are
Hmm.
nowhere. You are not doing anything."
Hmm.
So Yudhishthira was very frustrated. He was usually very kind to his brother, but that time he was very frustrated and all these kind of things.
Hmm.
And then Arjuna tried to explain his situation, just came to. And Yudhishthira said, if you can't do anything, then give your Gandiva to someone else. That's
Hmm.
what he said. Now, Arjuna has a oath. He committed to himself this part of reality, Satya Pratigya, right? So he
Hmm.
said that the person who will tell me to, throw away Gandiba or give the Gandiba to someone else, I'll kind of, I'll not tolerate that person. I'll actually fight again. It's like a it's not a culture of duel, right? Duel culture in
Yeah.
European society in the medieval, right? It
Right.
means that we have to kind of
Yeah.
fight with you or kill you. So I'll kill
Right.
you. And then
Hmm.
he was starting dragging his sword because
Hmm.
he has to, he has to take his own words very seriously.
Yeah.
And Yudhishthira asked, what are you doing? Why are you taking the sword out? I mean, we are in the camp. And he said, this is my oath and I have to now fight with you, even if you are my elder brother and I respect you a lot. And
Hmm.
then, of course, now comes the crisis manager of the Pandavas, who is
Hmm.
Krishna.
Hmm.
And Krishna said basically, well, you have to take our tradition. Is it
Hmm.
always right to comes to truth? No. Satta? No.
Hmm.
Dhananjaya, Krishna says. He
Hmm.
says that sometimes it is possible that you don't need to actually take truth that literally when the other things like ahimsa is in crisis. And he gives some examples.
Hmm.
And he actually gave this story. In this story, there was a sadhu, and then some thieves were coming, and then the thieves were chasing a person, and the person comes to the sadhu
Hmm.
sent, right? And the person say, and this sadhu says, okay, and sadhu knows where this guy is going. Then the thieves coming, and they ask where this guy is going, and he showed this way, and they killed him.
Hmm.
And then instead of being rewarded for truth, he was chastised for his lack of ahimsa. So the conclusion is, I'm just trying to come it very summarily. The conclusion is
Yeah.
basically Satta has to be compromised in the interest of Ahimsa. And then this was told to Arjuna, and Arjuna said, "Okay, but then what do I do?" He said, "Then the other, what is the other option?" He said, "Otherwise, so he said that okay, you have to kill your brother, but do it metaphorically. Just use some rude words to your brother." And he did that. And then he said,
Hmm.
"I have done so much bad to myself. What do I do? I must kill myself." And then Arjuna, and then Krishna says, okay, don't need to, basically, you need to kill yourself. How do you kill yourself? You just praise yourself. If you praise yourself, then it's like a death for this honorable person. So all these issues are there. But the
Hmm.
point I'm trying to tell you that look at these people. They are
Hmm.
fighting a big war, right? The greatest war
Yeah.
of those. And they are
Yeah.
definitely killing people.
Yeah.
But that kill is sort of ahinsha because it is done for a cause. It's not done for the personal sort of any issues or anything like that.
Yeah.
But when it comes to their own personal lives, they have to sort out issues like Satya and Ahimsa all the time.
Hmm.
And that's what they are kind of doing it.
Right.
So this is an entirely new framework of governance. And in
Yeah.
this particular framework, things has to be seen. I don't know whether
Yeah.
I'm being sort of
Yeah. Yeah.
understandable or comprehensible to
Yeah.
you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there is a ranking here that ahimsa is more important than satya.
That is correct. That is
Right.
generally the notion. Ahimsa is more important than Satta.
Right. Okay. So there is. I'm taking just one audience question for now because this is sort of a
Hmm,
counter to
hmm,
your argument.
hmm,
He's saying that
hmm,
I did not understand this. At one end, the professor accepts that Hindu mythology is apparently without a proof, maybe on belief, but also
hmm.
he wants to ground discussion on truth when it comes to workism.
No,
So.
I don't think I'm just passing any judgment on the mythologies.
Hmm.
So the problem is that when you think about the mythologies, we
Hmm.
sort of try to see whether that actually happened.
Yeah.
Now, the idea of that is that civilizational texts, they have been written based on the experience of our collective existence.
Hmm.
And whether they have happened or not, it is not ever possible to verify that. I mean,
Yeah.
who knows whether Bible is true or not, right? I mean,
Yeah.
at the end of the day, what happened in 1947? Who considered to partition and all these kind of things? Even there is a lot of debate, right? It's only
Yeah.
80 years ago and all these kind of things.
Yeah, yeah.
So
This is what Sanjeev Sanyal says anytime discussing history, that we people debate what happened yesterday for hours and hours on TV.
hours
How
and
are we
hours
going
and
to
hours,
do?
right?
Yeah,
What happened on 4th of June? Who came for
yeah,
support to whom? So all these kind of things, I mean, lots of
yeah,
debates are happening everywhere. So
yeah.
the way we see our things, I mean, we might call it mythology. That's not a
Hmm.
Christian term. I
Yeah.
would call it our shastras or our books. I think maybe
Or
the internet
itihasa.
is not powerful. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Anyway, so but
So
that
you
sort
can,
of, huh?
yeah, yeah. You can close down your camera like last day.
Yeah, but then it's not coming back. I suppose. Is it coming
Yeah.
back?
So just keep the audio only. That's what we did
Okay,
in the previous
that's what we did.
previous
I
day's
will do
podcast.
that. Yeah, fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
All right. So basically, we don't take them. I mean, we whether it happened or not,
Hmm.
that's a question that I think can never ever be answered. But the
Hmm.
idea of the traditional civilization is it's a continuity. So whatever actually we decide that this is good for our civilization,
Hmm.
uh, we kind of keep it based on our
Hmm.
understanding of Satya and Ahimsa. So the
Right.
versions of Ramayana and Mahabharata, we know that's not unique because there are different
Yeah.
traditions, small traditions
Yeah.
within. But the basis of all these things is these are kind of the guiding light from our experience. Unless you have a
Hmm.
theory, how would you know? The only way to
Hmm.
know is to keep the experience in some form, and that's how
Right.
we treat that scripts.
Right.
Okism and other things, but but if you come back, there's a problem here. If you see them as from scientific lens or something, and you say, well, can Hanuman can jump so many jojans? We
Yeah.
don't need really a verdict on that. We definitely go by our understanding. So there are different dimensions, as I also discussed last time. So there are different dimensions. One dimension is Boishesik, that is the real science or real technology, the way it happens. There
Hmm.
you don't have to go by the properties of nature and other things. The
Hmm.
other dimension is how would you take inspiration from other things, and that is part of the what we call something like Mimamsha. How would you reconcile different things? And
Yeah.
one part of Mimamsha is Itihash,
Hmm.
the what has previously happened as an
Hmm.
experience of the collective experience. And
Hmm.
Ramayana, Mahabharata, those are Itihas granthas.
Right. Okay, sir.
Huh.
How to negate himsa? I mean, my basic question is that uh, how could Mahatma Gandhi think that like laying down your arms, being defenseless, would be a great thing? How would an country without army survive with I mean enemies surrounded on all sides? Was he was he really that hopeful about Ahimsa? Did he really have any reason to trust non-violence to that extent, or was he paid, propped up, let's say, stooge by some other government or enemy of India? What do you think?
So, of course, whether he was propped up or not, that debate could happen and historians could talk about it. But I would actually try to look at things from own perspective. So, say what Gandhiji was thinking.
Hmm.
So, what I am thinking that he was genuine, but he was thinking from a teacher's point of view. If you think about a real teacher cannot change a student by hitting the person or beating the person. Real teacher has to give the understanding to the student. How? Sometimes the teacher has to himself suffer, and that the conscience of the student awakens and all these kind of things happen. So
Okay.
I'm saying Gandhiji was not wrong as a teacher, as a moral
Hmm.
teacher or something like that. But of course
Right.
politics is not run based on teacher, right? That's why different burners are. What Gandhiji is
Yes.
doing could be okay as a Brahmins or something like that, but that's not
Right.
how these Kshatriyas should do the thing.
Yeah.
That's what I would try to say it, and this is why the idea of astika and nastika is very important in our darsana, in our categories,
Yeah.
because many things could look very pleasant, like this
Hmm.
okism and other things. They look very pleasant to a certain age group of people, but
Yeah.
they are in a sense nastika, that doesn't exist, in the sense that that doesn't exist help you survive or sustain yourself. So
Yeah.
what Gandhiji said, it did not survive. The biggest proof is that after Gandhiji's own government comes, Congress takes over, and
Hmm.
Pakistan actually goes for taking the Kashmir, right?
Hmm.
And then basically Gandhiji was still alive. He
Hmm.
died on the January 1948, but Pak
Yeah.
troops have already invaded by them. Now,
Yeah.
Gandhiji never said that, I'll go with Charka and other things and try to change the conscience of this Pak army, whoever is
Yeah.
coming there. Right? Because
Yeah.
I think in some sense he's also understanding that these methods are not, it could be valid with a more civilized European audience, but not with these barbarian Pakistanis. But
Right.
so he kind of, shortly sort of withdrew himself, and we went for the real idea that, sending troops and other things. So I would
Sir,
say
what
that,
I'm wondering, if
yes.
he was a legitimate lawyer, how can
Hmm.
a lawyer think that models of a teacher will apply to foreign policy or governance or state structure or policing
That's
or
exactly
army?
what I'm trying to say. Only a lawyer will think that. Because lawyer is used to think that law is supreme and everything happens under the law, right? But that laws could be broken and other things only the diplomat or, states, someone who runs the affairs will know,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
That, Gandhiji was not that.
Yeah.
So he was a teacher, he was a lawyer, and he was drawing from his own experience only.
Right. Sir, in your book, you have pointed out
Hmm.
something fascinating.
Hmm.
You said that actually, liberalism is also full of ahimsa. Here's a sentence mainly. While
Hmm.
physical violence is not exerted,
Hmm.
mental violence is still hurting someone's employment or status, which liberals do, and hence the
Hmm.
liberal principles also constitute himsa. So,
Yes.
could you elaborate on this?
So this is a beautiful point on ahimsa. The idea is basically because these Western values have become most on physical violence. So
Hmm.
so what happens in West? There's a lot of violence that happened in the communist
Yeah.
regimes, right? People are
Yeah.
physically in China also,
Yeah.
and then people grew a sort of antipathy towards physical violence.
Hmm.
Now, because liberalism is sort of a same Marxist ideas, but albeit in a
Yeah.
cultural context. So
Yes.
in the in communists they always believe in re-education, and
Yeah.
this re-education could be very violent, right? We have seen in
Hmm.
this cultural revolution by Mao, 1 million
Hmm.
people died by the red guards of Mao.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, what happened that these liberals took lesson from that. They
Hmm.
know that if you actually be physically violent against someone, then
Yeah.
basically the people develop antipathy towards the ideology, and
Yeah.
eventually the entire thing falls apart. So
Yeah.
they change itself. They don't go
Yeah.
exert any physical violence, but they
Yeah.
actually. This is a very trick. Like I mean, in Bengal you have a proverb, right? Hate na mere bhate mara. So basically, you don't hit them, but sort of take the employment or livelihood away, and then make
Yeah.
people force on your own path. So
Yeah.
they do the same thing. But the idea
Yeah.
is then they are also accepting this person's idea just because someone's saying something. This is they are not accepting with it because they are
Yeah.
not accepting with it. They are getting but because you don't accept someone's idea doesn't mean that you have to be violent towards him in any form, culturally,
Yeah.
emotionally, all these things, right? And
Yeah.
that's what they are doing. So in
Yeah.
a way they are also practicing hingsha, albeit not
Yeah.
in a maybe may not be in the very physically, but it's still it is a sort of another sort of way avenue of violence, right?
Yeah. But these are the same people who also have come up with the idea of microaggression and violence. Now they don't even term just physical violence as violence. They call everything violence. They call everything trauma. Like if
Mhm.
a dog barks at
Structural
you tomorrow,
violence, yes.
you're traumatized for 50 years now. Everything is trauma.
Uh-huh.
Everyone is a
I-
trauma survivor. Everyone is a survivor of some other thing. So but they like to fire other people. There is no himsa for them.
So basically, they understand one thing. They understand in the propaganda war, people don't have the time or energy to go into the deeper things or deeper
Yeah.
thoughts.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
they want to say something and sort of strike something. And so basically, the moment they say structural violence and traumatized, so people say, well, these are things, this must be right, wrong, right. And that's
Yeah.
how they gain the upper hand, right? So this is
Yeah.
the propaganda tactics.
Right. Sir, I would like to ask a devil's advocate question to you, something about a point you made in the book. You said that
Sure.
liberals have stated, when asked anonymously, in as mentioned in your
Hmm.
chapter 16,
Hmm.
that they
Yes.
would discriminate based on
Hmm.
one's belief in liberalism. Okay, if you don't believe
Yes.
in liberalism, I will discriminate against you, which is
Yes.
mental ill
2012 paper.
intention.
Huh.
Yeah,
This is a
which is mental
2012
ill
paper.
intention. But
Hmm.
you are saying that this is mental ill intention without any real reason. Now, here
Hmm.
my question is that what if it is real reason according to them, that if I don't discriminate you and you are a Nazi and you hate let's say non-Hindus or non-Christians and you want them to die, so then it is my duty to fire you? No, you should not have an employment in that institution. So who decides what is the real reason?
So in a way, I would say liberals. Actually, you are sort of right. I mean, other day I was listening to Arnaud Bray,
Hmm.
popularly known as Great Bong, and he was saying
Yeah.
his favorite line is, "It is not fascist to be
Hmm.
fascist to a
Yeah.
fascist." So
Yeah.
that's sort of the argument, moral argument the liberals give.
Yeah.
Now, problem is, I mean, in a way, it is their right.
Hmm.
So the problem of liberalism is a deeper problem.
Hmm.
Problem is they have sort of like social theories, and
Right.
these social theories are not laboratoryly proven like scientific theories like we do in physics. And even in physics, those who have gone through the laboratories, they know that how
Yeah.
many departures happen from the theory in the laboratories and all this kind of thing. So it's not
Yeah.
so much of these things. They don't know. They
Yeah.
don't have this idea, but they
Yeah.
implement everything according to the theory. And
Hmm.
this is why what they come up with these kind of ideas.
Yeah.
So my point is the idea of the theoretical thing is sort of wrong.
Hmm.
People should go by experiential reality.
Hmm.
And in experiential reality, I should not actually discriminate against someone when that person has not done anything to me. That is sort of against the idea of ahimsa.
Right.
If you go really that direction, then actually you can go anywhere. So I have a
Yeah.
communist sort of, what I would say, friend, classmate. I mean, not exactly friend, I would say, acquaintance, let's say. So he kind of says, okay, everybody is wrong. BJP is wrong because BJP chanted Ram little loud or something, whatever it is. But communists are all correct when they are running Gulag because they are
Yeah.
communists. So
Yeah.
basically, you can justify anything if you go in that direction.
Yeah.
So that's why you should go by the experiential reality, which are good for actually.
Right. Sir,
Hmm.
this is something that has always fascinated me since the time I read your book. This idea of experiential identity and experiential reality, the empirical
Mhm.
evidence around me.
Hmm.
So, isn't this the reason why people would rather vote for Lockheed Bhandar than the overall progress of the state? Is that good or bad?
Exactly. No, so in a way, we cannot really take away people's experiential matter. So, for
You
example,
can't.
when people are voting for Lakshmi Bhandar,
Hmm.
there is, I cannot blame that person. That
I
reality
agree.
is, so that's the sort of, we kind of develop a kind of antipathy, and these people are bad. So,
Yeah.
because there's no employment, as we know, right? In Bengal, very
Yeah.
few scopes for employment and
Yeah.
all this kind of thing. So, of
Yes.
course, people will love the money and they trust someone who is giving that thing, right?
Yeah.
They will not trust a
Yeah.
newcomer. You don't never know, right? How he's going to
Right.
turn out. Huh.
Yeah.
So, that is true at one level.
Right.
But at the other level, then the problem comes about this kind of centralization. So,
Hmm.
what happens when you do a lot of centralization of governance? You can actually have a very different view outside what the ugly view inside. And
Hmm.
this is a problem. That's why centralization could give it to a very problematic with Satya and Ahimsa.
Hmm.
Satya and Ahimsa, for example, that's why you should have a more experiential content. People should
Hmm.
directly participate in governance. For
Hmm.
example, Panchayat. Panchayats are horribly run nowadays.
Yeah.
Panchayats don't all collect very few amount of the revenue from people themselves. They
Hmm.
just get the doles, and it is
Yeah.
sort of a avenue to give your, it's being, being partisan and being openly, nakedly, most demonstratedly partisan, and
Hmm.
distribute the doles. This
Right.
actually creates a culture of hingsha. This is not a
Yeah.
very good idea, right? So,
Yeah.
but if you think the same panchayats, it
Hmm.
lets them collect their own revenue and
Hmm.
manage their own governance. You will
Hmm.
see actually the leadership in the villages will change. You will not have this kind of destructive leadership. You will have much more constructive leadership in that kind of case.
Yeah. Right. Okay, sir. The Before we move on to the main question today about
Hmm.
what would be the nature of Hindurashtra, I have one other question about something fascinating. You have pointed out that how liberalism comes directly from Christianity almost. This is a
Mhm.
fabulous paragraph that I have underlined from your book. That what was ultimate destiny in the Christian framework became Enlightenment parlance, the same historical pattern observable across the history of various peoples. What was degenerate idolatry in the Christian worldview became erroneous idolatry in the Enlightenment worldview. Instead of religion as God's gift to man, in the liberal worldview, it became nature's gift to man, and so on.
Mhm.
So, sir,
Actually,
is
this is
then
by Bal Gangadhar, S.N. Bal
right, right,
Gangadhar.
right? Yeah,
Hmm.
this is a section on your synopsises that you have drawn from S.N.
Hmm.
Balagangadhara.
Hmm. Hmm.
So, therefore, is that phrase that Hindus are most liberal people? Is that phrase technically wrong? Then I guess
So there is
liberalism
an
is
issue
completely
here.
a different thing. Yeah.
So I would say that, see, the problem is we Hindus, we are being reactive for last 500 years or so,
Yeah.
right? So we lost our governance
Hmm.
uh, because we've been invaded by um, people with a very different theory
Hmm.
from the Middle East.
Yeah.
Now, after we lost our experiential governance, it is
Hmm.
very hard to discover, because experiential governance, by definition, you take you take basically experiences very seriously, and you,
Hmm.
based on that, you make your policies.
Yeah.
Now there is a break now, because we don't have a real king, right? We are not really governing ourselves,
Right.
and that's why we have to be very reactive. So when Shivaji he came, so basically he has to create a new theory,
Hmm.
and this new theory first is started by
Hmm.
Shivaji Maharaj, but then it is
Hmm.
basically Peshwas they continued. It's called Hindu Pado Pado Sai. So
Hmm.
basically, Hinduism is sort of like, Hindus were not a religion, but it was called a different kind of Hindus are there. Hindus are a people, right? And these people have to be kind of be treated like a branch of the trees. That's Hindu Padopado side, right? And these Marathas at the kind of the core. That's how
Yeah.
this ideology. So this
Yeah.
is to basically the very manipulation of the Islamic ideology. The Islamic ideology, the core is basically the, Islamic, I'm saying in the sense of the political sense, political Islam sense. So basically, the Makkah is the core, or Khalifa is the core, and there are different tributaries of Khalifa, and they'll go these directions, right? So because they are countering that narrative, they have to come up with this, right?
Yeah.
And then the British came. When the British came, we are very puzzled first about these people, because these people are sort of very different people. We don't understand them. And then we started again reacting to this, and they said, "You people are barbaric. You did not have a concept of nation." And so we have to say, well, we are a Hindu nation and all these kind of things, right? And this started in Bankim Chandra first, and then Indian National Congress happened. And that is by
Yeah.
a British idea. And then
Yeah.
eventually Savarkarji, he came. But
Yeah.
so he gave the idea of Hindutva, which is basically the way you can counter the Western nationalism, and we have develop our nationalism.
Yeah.
Now, what happened after that? West, now they are denouncing this their ideology of nationalism. Now they are switching back to liberalism, right? They're saying nationalism is bad itself,
Yeah.
and because you are Hindu nationalist, you are bad. The
Yeah.
problem is, again, we are countering. We say, well, we have
Yeah.
to be liberal. We are the Hindu liberals, right?
Yeah.
The problem is, they actually have our own governance, and that is not nationalism. That is not liberalism.
Yeah.
They may have some elements of nationalism,
Hmm.
but some elements of liberalism. But this is
Yeah.
our own way of governance.
Yeah.
And that governance, we used to call it Dharma. That governance, we used to call it Swaraj. So Swaraj does not mean our own kingdom. It means the kingdom that is governed by basically Dharma, king by sustainability. Right? When you say this, um, when we say basically a sustainable world, so that's what is basically we call it Sarastra. So all these things is basically are connected with the idea, and that idea we have to say it. So basically, what I'm trying to say that in some sense, we, instead of calling ourselves liberal, we should point out that what is our ideology and what is it superior to the liberals, and the root is actually there. I'm definitely going to write a book on that. But here is the gist, because we Hindus, we just like to know everything in 2 lines. We don't have the patience to read too much, Rajiv ji
Yeah.
says. Now, basically, here is the gist. The gist is that liberalism goes by the theory. You have a theory and you hold it as sacrosanct and act accordingly. In Hindu view, we don't go by the theory, we go by our lived experience. And
Yeah.
that lived experiences are written in it's a continuous civilization ours, right? We are not proud because we are the most ancient. We may not be the most ancient. Sumerians may be more than before than us. But what is important is that we have survived. And that actually shows our way of thinking is a sustainable. And
Yeah.
this way of thinking may not match any of your theories. It may not match with your nationalism. It may not match with your liberalism. But
Right.
that has sustained. And the key to that sustenance is Satya and Ahimsa.
Right. Okay, sir. One small little digression, which I should have asked actually much earlier. Isn't
please go ahead.
sugarcoating of truths also, I guess, relevant or important in some context, or is it never a good thing to sugarcoat things? That, like, let's say, if you are obese, should I tell you you are fat, go exercise, or should I say you are beautiful in your own way, be proud of your body?
So
What if,
essentially,
no, my question is not just a devil's advocate, what if it actually ends to practical things? That what if I by saying that you feel good enough about yourself, but later on you still think that I'm having so much difficulty in getting up, I'm panting all the time, so why not just work out and lose some weight? But
I know what you're
it,
trying to say.
yeah, more
So
often than not it
basically,
doesn't happen. But what if?
So basically, there is something called Kantian imperative. So in the logical paradox, there are different kinds of moralities, right? So one domain is, of course, the utilitarian domain, which is John Stuart Mill. The other domain is called Kantian moral imperative. It was actually, although it's called Kantian and it is traced to Immanuel Kant, it is actually told by the Rawls, John Rawls. He was a very famous book.
Yeah.
So John Rawls actually he tried to say that you need to define the morality as few principles as possible, and these principles has to be consistent. And then he came up with this idea that you have to speak the sort of truth that is sort of like Kantian imperative. It actually goes against post-truth, but anyway. So, but any involves, but in our civilization, the idea is always context specific. Now, see, if you are really, if I'm just meeting you for the first time, and I should not basically say, I could sugarcoat a little bit of truth, right? I mean,
Right.
in our Shastra, it also says, Satyam Bada, Priyam Bada. So you speak the
Okay.
truth, but you speak the words that are like sweet. I mean, you should not kind of point out their weakness and just feel them bad. So
Hmm.
basically, that is not correct. So
Hmm.
that's why if I'm meeting you for the first time, of course I will say no good things about you, not do that. But suppose you are my brother, should I
Exactly.
really sugarcoat the truth? I mean, then of course I should. I mean, that is not a that's so whatever I say doesn't matter. You are my brother anyway. So probably
Yeah.
I should guide you something positive, right? I
Right.
mean, this ahimsa, the idea of ahimsa, right? Suppose you
Yeah.
are deviating and I'm not pointing it out, then I'm
Yeah.
failing in this my attempt of ahimsa. And then,
Yeah.
as you know, of course, hello,
Yeah.
can
Hello.
you hear me?
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah.
I mean, the screen becomes blank, but I suppose if you can hear me, that's fine.
Yeah. Yeah. I
Um,
can.
right. So basically, if you are my brother, then of course
Hmm.
you have to do for my. If you are not, I'm go deviating, and you are not
Yeah.
telling me the feedback. Then you are
Yeah.
deviating in your own duty. As a
Yeah.
brother, you should actually guide me when I'm wrong, right? Right or wrong,
Yeah.
right?
But
So that's
sir,
why.
isn't let's say a societal pushback to some of some bad behaviors also necessary, and hasn't that also happened forever, that we always used to, not me personally, but as a society we have always made fun of people with unhealthy lifestyles or people who are
Hmm.
extremely fat, and that has
Hmm.
always made sure in the end that people are not that fat in our society, because
Yes.
today when we have actually stopped making fun of fat people, actually
Hmm.
the number of fat people has increased. Or is it because of the overall increase in calories in our diet? Which do you think is going on?
No, I think primarily what happened, we lost the idea of community. So what I'm saying that here,
Right.
our Satya and Ahimsa, it comes naturally from everyone, right? So we kind of feel like Srindantu Vishya Amritasya Putraha means the entire world is full of people of immortality. So the Satya and Ahimsa doesn't come from outside, doesn't come from a theory. Theory
Hmm.
means coming from outside, right? In the Christian
Right.
paradox, the God lives outside, right? So this is
Yeah.
like theory. It's coming from
Hmm.
outside.
Hmm.
When it comes from an experience, it comes from inside. So basically, everyone gets it. So when we had communities, then people are more comfortable talking to each other, talking about each other, criticizing each other. Even if you are
Yes.
mocking me, you are not
Yeah.
becoming my enemy because you are
Hmm.
no, I know you are mine. Even though you are
Exactly.
mocking, still you are, you're sort of a part of me in a way, right?
Hmm.
And
True.
then that is getting lost because community is being destroyed, and therefore these theory-driven values of political correctness, which are basically runs an asatya, I would say, against
Hmm.
the reality, they runs
Exactly.
very very dominant. So I'm
Exactly.
saying satya is not a very much like a impractical concept that you go to the guy, everyone, and you just say things that is
Exactly.
crazy. That's not
Right.
how it works. It has to be
Yes.
also nuance and with context, right?
Yes. Yes.
But at the same time, we need satya cannot happen in a very vacuum. It has to
Yeah.
be nurtured by communities. It nurtured by moral values, nurtured by
Exactly.
good education, and all these kind of things.
Yeah, exactly. That is why when a friend calls someone another friend fat,
Hmm,
it's sort of a friendly banter, but also an
huh,
indirect call for him to not be fat. Whereas it's if it's some distant relative whom you are seeing after 10 years,
hmm,
he comes home for the first time and says, "Why have you put on so much weight?" That becomes very
huh.
irritating. Yeah,
Very irritating, right? And
yeah,
doesn't help you movie also.
exactly.
So basically, it might look a little funny, but I
Hmm.
still go to the reunion of my high school friends. I mean,
Hmm.
it happened last 4 years. I went 2 times, and
Okay.
there some of my classmates. I mean, of course, people are very dissimilar now in status and other things. I mean, but
Hmm.
still, there's a lot of friendly banter that goes on, and people
Hmm.
mock me and all these kind of things.
Hmm.
But I sort of enjoy it. I
Yeah.
also try to. I know that definitely people are saying not all the time nice things behind my back, but then
Hmm.
the moment they mock me, I also get to see that part of the reality a little bit more closely, right? So it
Hmm.
actually helps me seeing the reality.
Yeah. And actually this is what something a lot of people don't get when it comes to blaming rape or molestation victims, that why did she go out in the night.
Hmm.
If you are that woman's father or boyfriend or brother, you are actually supposed to say that yes, don't go out in Park Street or Park Circus in the middle of the night in Kolkata. but the state or the police whose job it is to make sure that Park Street and Park Circus is actually safe, they can't be the ones saying it.
Right.
Random
So it
unknown
is
people
context
start saying.
specific. It is
Yes.
context specific, and this is
Yes.
why we call it in our. There's a word for that. It's called Maryada. Maryada. Maryada means basically what's your decorum. So you know, not everybody can say everything, right? You have to be this
Exactly.
Maryada. And this
Yes.
Mahabharata, when there's a lot of exchanges in courts, and then people talking about the violation of these Maryadas and all these
Right.
kind of things. Yeah.
Sir, all the politicians, police people, they don't usually come from commie atheist backgrounds. These people know Mahabharata, Ramayana inside out. Why
Hmm.
have they not learned anything about Maryada, Decorum, Satya, Ahimsa, anything?
Because the problem is in our education, we sort of believe, the moment you go through our education, you sort of believe that India has basically nothing worthwhile to offer. We are getting civilized by the British. I mean, this
Yeah.
Macaulay's idea, we have kept the same thing. Unfortunately, right? If you go to any social science book and everything, they only praise the institution like governance and this and that. They never praise the ideas like family. They never praise the idea that we learn from our extended family, from our grandfather, grandmother. These are our
Yeah.
institutions, right? These are more
Yeah.
powerful institutions for human beings, for
Yeah.
Indians. We don't
Yeah.
never learn about it, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, sir. Now getting to the section of the nature of
Hindurashtra.
Hindurashtra,
Yeah.
we can start with an audience member question. He's asking, Kaushik ji, would you say that a Dharmic Hindu civilizational state by nature can't be theocratic, so it will roughly be a Dharmic democracy which adheres to its plurality and neutrality of faiths?
Excellent question. So what I will say, there is a problem about Hindurashtra from the left and from the right. I think I'll start with the left because that's easy for this audience to understand. So basically, the moment you say Hindurashtra, the left becomes sort of like mad, angry, and why? Because for them, Hindurashtra means a theocratic state, as he's kind of alluding to,
Yeah.
and basically any kind of a religious state is bad,
Hmm.
and because we love secularism, and that's why this Hindurashtra is bad. There's no other reason. This is the entire logic is all about, right?
Hindu
Now,
Pakistan.
Hindu Pakistan,
Yeah.
yeah. Now the problem is, so here there's a problem in many dimensions. Firstly, if you go by our experiential content, Hinduism, as we know, even if you believe there is really a Hinduism as a religion, let's really believe it. I'm not a believer in that, but let's believe it that Hinduism is a religion as real as Christianity or Islam.
Hmm.
But then you will see the most secular of actions have come from Hinduism, right? For example,
Yeah.
Buddha's place, this Bodh Gaya. Bodh Gaya was actually the Muslims, the Muslims armies, they fought and then destroyed temples and all these kind of things. It was actually protected by the Hindus. So in the even in this now Bodh Gaya temple, now Buddhists have kind of come back and claimed themselves, the neo Buddhists. But the actually the places was kept alive by Hindus. And Hindus actually kept Buddha, who was supposed to be anti-Hindu, as their own avatar. So it actually shows that Hindus are very secular and very inclusive, right? What do you call it?
Yeah.
They actually take everyone. Of course, the stories of Parsis getting refused or
Yeah. Yeah.
Christians,
Yeah.
Saint Thomas Christians or Jews,
Yeah.
and all these cases are very real,
Yeah.
right? Now,
Yeah.
now, so there is no problem of secularism when Hinduism was very strong. I mean, historians have to agree on that, right? They can
Yeah.
do some fake histories here and there, but that's not very sustainable.
Hmm.
Now, so this, there's a fabrication called, there's a story like, I mean, I don't know, I don't want to digress too much, but basically, there's a story that Hindus destroyed a lot of Buddhist temples, and which is basically entire nonsense. So there are only two kings. One is you mentioned Harsa in Raj Tarangani, and this Harsa, this guy, it's not Harsa Vardhan, it's a different Harsa. So this guy was a puppet of the Turkish ruler. And then, of course,
Oh.
whatever Turkish ruler would do, he has to do it, right? Survival. So basically, these are not very sustainable things, and this is sort of what's happening. So the second way it is also problematic, the leftist logic, is because Hinduism as a religion is not at all comparable to Islam or Christianity. I mean, so there is a lot of arguments by that, but these arguments are coming from different quarters. One is, of course, S.N. Balgangadhar, I think, who is a very great scholar, I mean, prolific scholar in his own right. He was also the chair for American Association of Religions. So he has book Hidden in Blindness. I've given the synopsis in my book.
Yeah.
It actually shows that Hinduism is not a religion if you consider Christianity or Islam as religion.
Hmm.
Second, it also comes from the Christianity itself. There are Christian scholars like Tom Holland, is a very famous scholar. Then in Twitter he might have a 1 million follower or something like that. For a scholar, that's
Okay.
really big. Huh. So and
Hmm.
then basically Tom Holland also argues that Christianity is the religion. There is no religion before that. Pagan and Hindus, that religion did not exist before Christianity. So he
Hmm.
considers religion as a gift of Christianity. The same idea.
Hmm.
If
Hmm.
you go to these people like liberals, like Seldon Pollock and this gang, right? So they also think about something called neo-Hinduism. So Hinduism did not exist. It started with Vivekananda only, right? So
Yeah, yeah.
again, they also agree that there is no Hinduism as we know today, right? So all these people, they also accept that Hinduism is not a religion as we know today. So
Hmm.
basically, then if you are taking the lessons from Christian Europe, of course, Christianity did a lot of problems, bigotry and other things in the medieval times. And from that, people took experience and they started the secular state in Europe. But that is
Hmm.
not applicable to us at all because
Hmm.
that history does not belong to us, right? It's a very different
Hmm.
culture and all this kind of thing.
Hmm.
So that way, leftist arguments are all wrong because if it's Hinduism is not a religion, of course Hindus could have a state, right? Just
Hmm.
like British they have a state, French they have a state, Germans they have a state. There's no
Hmm.
problem in Hindus having a state.
Hmm.
So that problem of theocratic is wrong sort of thing.
Right. Sir,
Now this, yeah,
yeah, you're
please.
gone.
No, no, I will come to the rights argument. If you have a question here, please go on, intervene me.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, what would be Hindurashtra according to you? What would be its nature? What would it look like? And uh, how far are we, based on today's laws, today's government policies? How far are we from, let's say, on a scale of 1 to Hindurashtra, where are we? Or on
Acha,
Hindurashtra
we'll see
being
that.
10?
Acha, we'll see that. Second
Yeah.
part is problem of the right. The
Hmm.
right often thinks, your preamble, it is there, right? Sovereign, secular, socialist, democratic republic.
Hmm. Hmm.
So just cross the word socialist and secular, put it Hindu.
Hmm.
Sovereign, Hindu, democratic republic. And we
Hmm.
think that it will be Hindu Rashtra. That is also again a big problem
Yeah.
because we know that preamble, if you change here and there, it has no bearing at all in any of the things, right? All the
Yeah.
judgments will be same and all these kind of things.
Yes.
So nothing will change, right? So I
Yeah.
think the problem, I think, I think he had left been a little bit more reasonable.
Hmm.
Narendra Modi would have got this Hindu by now and probably won an election landslide, but nothing
Yeah.
would change that way. I mean,
Yeah.
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 So I mean, so that way, so that is also not a very great thing to happen. I mean, in a
Hmm.
way. So,
Hmm.
what is basically the idea of Hindu Rashtra? I don't like the word Hindu per se. In
Hmm.
a sense, I mean, I have no enmity with the word. The
Hmm.
problem is that the connotation of the word is known by the how people use it in the present context.
Yeah.
Present context, Hindu is a word that is referred to a particular group of people,
Hmm.
right? Maybe in
Yeah.
India. But
Yeah.
we are not fighting nationalism. So Hindutva, when Savarkarji gave it, he was trying to define nationalism because we are fighting the other nations, right? British, French,
Yes.
German,
Yes.
other nations. But now we are
Yes.
not fighting these nations. We
Hmm.
are actually fighting liberalism, which is an all pervading sort of ideology, right? They are trying
Hmm.
to capture each and every nation.
Hmm.
Now, so that our values, it cannot be really a Hindu values. It has to be universal values. I think the
Hmm.
word dharmic that way is much more universal. So it is
Hmm.
possible that Hindus are most dharmic people. There is no problem with that. But still,
Hmm.
other people could as well be dharmic, right? Jewish people could be dharmic. Even I would say the
Yeah.
British people. I mean, I mean, the way I know the British people and American people, a lot of them are very dharmic persons.
Hmm.
As a people, they have to decide their course of action. But yeah,
Hmm.
so so basically that way, this is a much better word.
Hmm.
Now, as I argued in my book also, that a
Hmm.
sustainable word dharma is basically Satya and Ahimsa.
Hmm.
And all our then the Satya and Ahimsa, as I told you, it requires to be then the entire constitution. In a way, this is not very conducive to Satya and Ahimsa. The
Hmm.
problem with this constitution is itself because it's an imposed document, right? It's from the top actually, and
Hmm.
it is actually there's a real similarity with the Governance of India Act in 1935. I mean,
Yeah.
big similarity, right?
Yeah.
So this is not the way to go for Satta. Satta has to be people has to perceive themselves. So in a level, I would say you have to decentralize a lot. You have to give power back to each and every panchayat and all these kind of things. That is one way of think. Second is the issue of course, this is one issue of local governance. Second issue is that of education. I'll
Sir,
just talk
sir,
about, yeah, please.
uh, I'll have to interrupt a little because at the
Go
moment,
ahead.
living in West Bengal, decentralization is a very scary thing because West Bengal has its own plans that from absolutely different from the rest of the country. So, what would be more decentralization leading to? Wouldn't we again get back to a situation where another Chhatrapati Shivaji would have to come up hoping to unite the country, whereas we at the moment have a unite the country. So why not like convince or force the naysaying regional shatraps to let's say toe the line according at least in terms of unity and some amount of national cohesion, which some states don't seem to be interested in. And even in terms of empowering the panchayats, let's say panchayats are already corrupt. If we let's say at least give them some more state more authority, more power, more money, and let's say a bit more of the local law and order governance as well. So we have local police stations also who won't budge unless the local councillor or the local party's gunda calls them up and asks them to do something. So how is this going to work anyway, the decentralization part mainly?
Right. So very good questions. Now, problem is we are thinking as a very so the way we think sometimes of an idea, because we grew up in the Western parlance, we
Yes.
think of it as an equilibrium solution, that
Hmm.
we have to go there, right?
Yeah.
But I am talking about a process, not an equilibrium solution.
Hmm.
Now, what happens? We have different processes in different times. So generally,
Hmm.
there are two times. One times is called the time of Siva. Time
Hmm.
of Siva is more of a static time. And what I'm trying to give you, because you are asking, I mean, in a way, I thought it's like an equilibrium, sort of more sustainable time. It is time
Hmm.
of Siva.
Hmm.
That time may not be the right now.
Hmm.
Right now may be the time of Shakti. Shakti means
Hmm.
there is a great change happening, great wars are happening, and all these kind of things.
Hmm.
And in this time, there is a different rule again.
Hmm.
Now, if you are really thinking about dharma to subside, so first and foremost, the ideologies or theories, these are ashatta. They are giving unreal pictures to people. They has
Hmm.
to be destroyed.
Hmm.
That is the idea of the Shakti times.
Hmm.
Shakti times is more about destruction.
Hmm.
Shiva times is more about construction.
Hmm.
Okay, so basically the Shakti times, the we call it Shakti creation, because for creation we need to destroy something, right? Like
Hmm.
unlearn to learn sort of idea.
Yeah.
Now, what is happening now? Suppose there is a lot of ideologies, as we discussed a little bit a while ago, right? Liberalism,
Hmm.
one ideology. There are
Hmm.
others which are maybe more old, but they actually give you a very unreal picture of themselves, right? How you
Hmm.
going to live after life and all these kind of things. And there's a lot of unreal pictures are coming from those ideologies.
Hmm.
And these ashattas are actually prompting people to do harmful things. So
Hmm.
these ideologies has to be negated.
Hmm.
Unless these ideologies are sort of vanquished upon, you
Right.
cannot really start the construction part. So the Siva part will
Right.
come only after the Shakti part, right?
Yeah.
So uh,
And
this,
so here, let's say if maybe you are not saying this directly, maybe I'm going to interpret this more directly. Therefore, I will say this has to be happen. This unlearning part has to happen with a lot of changes in the academia. How else is it going to
academia,
happen?
so basically it's a Durga. You see the Durga. So this is the Shakti part. Shakti part is demonstrated by the
Hmm.
Durga, the idea of the
Hmm.
Durga, right?
Hmm.
If you see in one part of Durga, there is a Lakshmi and Ganesha. The other side of Durga is the Saraswati and Kartika, right?
Hmm.
So these are like two inherently different forces. Academia is represented by Saraswati. Kartik
Hmm.
is the military. Now, if
Yeah.
you go to any academic conferences, they
Hmm.
are always critical about the army. So
Yeah.
that's what is the general trend among the academicians, right?
Hmm.
Because we are losing the purpose of Shakti. In the Shakti times, the academia, the education part and the army part, they have to join hand by hand. So in one end, in education, whatever the ideologies that has to be negated, in
Yeah.
education you have to counter it. But of course, not everybody will listen to education. Some people will think that because of they have brutal force, beastly force, they will count over. No, they will not listen to us. Listen to the
Hmm.
Satya and Ahimsa. So
Hmm.
those forces has to be neutralized, right? And that's why you need the army part, right?
Hmm.
Similarly, the other part of the story, I mean, how would you really go over this Pakistan threat, right? At one end, of course, Pakistanis, they have to be told the right and other things. They have to be given the right education, right? They lost the right education because their state doesn't sponsor it. But at the other end, not all Pakistanis will listen to that, right? Some of them will come and do some terrorism in India. So they have to be neutralized. There's no other option, right? Secondly, if you
Yeah.
go to this Lakshmi and Ganesh part, Ganesh means the
Hmm.
mass, right? Like
Hmm.
in West Bengal, I think the mass power is very powerful, and that's why we
Hmm.
can do these riggings in spite of all these centralized
Yeah.
forces and everything, right? But the
Right.
Lakshmi part is absent, the money
Yeah.
making part, right? There was no
Yeah.
industry and all these kind of things, right?
Yeah.
In the other places, you go to a place like Gujarat, I think this Lakshmi part is very much present, but
Hmm.
this Ganesh part is more absent kind of thing there.
Hmm.
Communities are kind of becoming, I mean, this is a general trend in the wealthy people, right?
Yeah.
Now, both has to become again side by side.
Yeah.
So this is sort of the idea of the Shakti times.
Hmm.
So academia is one institution, army is one institution. This Ganesha means basically the community and the power, street power or whatever you call it mass power, and
Hmm.
this power of the mass. And this Lakshmi means basically institutions and enterprises. So
Yeah.
all these forces has to be in sync with the idea of the Shakti, right? You have to defeat that unreal ideologies.
Right. But that kind of sync would mean more centralization, right? At least for a time being.
Definitely. Otherwise, the sync won't happen. That's the idea of the
Exactly.
sign, right? And that's
That
why
is
if
what.
you go to this portrayals of the Devi, right, in Chandi, we have done it, right, Birendra Krishna Bhadra. So
Hmm.
basically, this is all about centralization. This is Durga, right? So all the devatas they are coming and they are giving their own power to this organization, and it
Yeah.
is about centralization, right?
Yeah.
So that way it is true, but then we should not keep it as an eternal image. This has
Exactly.
its use for a few years, a few decades possibly,
Right.
but then you have to
Right.
go back to again decentralized form and all the other
Yeah.
things.
Nothing is no idea is forever, right? No solution is
Now it
forever.
is forever. That's the experiential
Right.
reality.
Yeah.
And the problem with the theory is that it thinks one idea, that end of history kind of argument, which is pretty much
Exactly.
stupid because
Yeah.
contexts are changing, right, in this changing
Yeah.
world.
Exactly. This is what came to my mind last day. Professor Srijit Datta comes to our channel regularly, right?
I have
So
seen once or twice, yes.
yeah. So last day we were discussing Binoy Kumar Sarkar, and Srijit
Yes,
Datta sir was
socialist, right?
pointing out that even he was in favor of individualism, but Srijit Datta pointed out that he was not in favor of individualism to the extent that it will destroy the community. So he did
Hmm,
not know
hmm.
that individualism is going to lead to problems that we have today in the West, or now seemingly more in the Indian cities as well. So that brought to my mind the question that would you blame the people who at least at some point thought communism was a great idea, or should they have realized from the very beginning that communism was always going to be a bad idea? Same with individualism also. You can comment on both these things.
See, my own, ancestors were communists in some sense, a few of them.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
the point is that I think, so I cannot judge them. So I cannot judge them as long as they did conscientious acts. Whenever they have done acts which are in conscience, I cannot blame them.
Hmm.
Um, so maybe it's possible that they thought communism is the right idea, and I can't blame them. Suppose people can't, get food, right? Even Vivekananda said, right? It is insult to people if you talk about religion to people when they are actually crying for food, right? I mean, that's
Hmm.
what sort of things you're saying.
Hmm.
So maybe in that context, they felt communism is the right idea.
Yeah.
I have no comments on that.
Yeah.
But of course, someone saying now communist is a great idea and
Exactly.
gulag is the right thing. Of course,
Exactly.
I must say that person is stupid or selfish or possibly both.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hmm.
Sir, I have more questions. Before that, this is also a very relevant question that a viewer is asking. He's asking that,
Hmm.
so Hindu consciousness is close to utilitarianism. Is there any concept of numerical estimation of good and bad like in classical utilitarianism in Hinduism?
So this utilitarian, even this idea, it is a Protestant Christian construct. And in
Okay.
this idea, basically, you try to judge people by how much gain they will make, and sort of make most people getting most of the gains, right? But the problem is, it is possible that most people are getting a lot of gains, but this idea could still be wrong, right? For example, if you think about this problem with the nature, people are gaining, we are getting a lot of consumptions, we are happy, we are shopping and all these kind of things, right? This kind of culture that has evolved in the
Right.
metros,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
So people are happy, right?
Hmm.
Everybody is getting their share of the consumption happiness by shopping, by driving cars and restaurants and whatnot, right?
Hmm.
But is that the, and that's how actually this community is destroying, because people are
Hmm.
going for their own individual things, right?
Yeah.
But then this is problematic, this is not consistent with dharma. this idea of our universalism is dharma, sustainability, because this is violating the nature's code of conduct, and we cannot live in this planet for long with this kind of lifestyle.
Yeah.
Uh,
But how is then utilitarianism different from the empirical evidence or experiential identity of Hindus? Because even this would be part of that experiential identity, that I'm going to the shopping mall and driving my own car, and that's making me happy. So
mhm.
screw everything else.
So
Isn't there therefore this
basically,
also a very Hindu thing to do in one way?
so you are right in a way. So the
Hmm.
dharmas have different layers. So,
Right. Right.
so there are different kala dharmas. So in this, so
Yeah.
right now I came here driving because
Hmm.
that sort of the looked like the same thing for me to do.
Yeah.
But of course, even I was also polluting the nature, right? But
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm trying to minimize it as long as possible,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Now,
Yeah.
so from that point of view, so in the if you go to the Gita and Mahabharata
Hmm.
in general,
Hmm.
Mahabharata is struggle between different dharmas. I think if
Hmm.
we can have at least 10 courses. Actually, you can have a master's in Mahabharata itself, and that
Hmm.
person should be a management consultant of the highest order. But
Hmm.
even the text is not taught. Forget about the different implications and other things. But the idea of Mahabharata is conflict between different dharmas, and when which conflict, which side you should be there. Even in the Gita, there is a last is Sarva Dharman Parityajyo Mamekang Saranang Bhaja. So basically, you forget all the different dharmas and you follow the mam. Mam means basically I, but it means basically Atma. So there
Hmm.
are different, all these issues are there.
Hmm.
Uh, I don't want to go to too much detail, but what I'm trying to
Hmm.
say that there are conflicts between different dharmas.
Yeah.
Now, of course, someone getting this experience, of course, they are maybe they are feeling happy and all these kind of things.
Yeah.
But this has limited sustainability. This
True.
is all right when it was in the beginning of the 20th century, but not in the beginning of the 21st century, when we know that the problems are happening because of the our abuse of nature, right? So from
Hmm.
that point of view, utilitarian is a bad idea because
Yeah.
it puts nature and sustainability in the back seat.
True.
More questions?
Yeah. He's asking, Dada kindly ask whether do you think a uniform civil code is an Abrahamic Christian idea which is being put on us because it's prevalent in European countries? I mean, do you think
No.
uniform civil code would be a Abrahamic Christian idea just because it is prevalent in European countries?
So the problem is, this is a so multi-layered question here. So
Hmm.
problem is, I am against this uniformity of laws. I Because when you make uniformity, it's based on theory. It doesn't flow from the experience, right? We are there different communities, and they used to do business very well. In fact, all these laws, they lose all their relevance for 50% of the population. They only go by their own community norms. It's only in the urban spheres in certain places these norms sort of become very,
Yeah.
sacrosanct.
Yeah.
So at one level, this any law and uniformity of law is a bad idea. But then there's a, of course, so basically it's a Christian, or maybe I'd say basically theory-driven idea. So even Christianity probably was not that theoretical 500 years ago. This world is running for a theory for the last 500 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, but now, but the problem is in the second level. But of course, in India, we have to see the context.
Hmm.
um, if the context of the UCC, or in the supporters of UCC, it seemed to me that they want to sort of think that law actually allows loopholes for some people to avoid their responsibility towards national growth and population control and other things and other certain.
Yeah.
So
Because
then,
in the end laws are followed by only urban middle class educated people who don't have too many political contacts. Everyone makes up their own law or follows them only to the extent they wish to, if they have some street backing. If you show up to any police station with 200 people, you'll get away with most things in your life.
and also the law is so much subject to interpretation, right? I mean,
Yeah.
people must have followed this Ajit Bharti case. I mean,
Yeah.
in one avenue, any of us, you, me, in this conversation, which is done most decent manner, I think we
Hmm.
can also be sued if you
Yeah.
go by that kind of protocols of the law,
Right.
right? I mean, right. Only
Yeah.
we are not so important that that being done. So, but that's pretty
Right.
much the case. Yeah.
Yeah,
Now
we
the
are at the
problem,
mercy of people. It's a
we are the
miracle that
mercy of people.
I'm not arrested at the moment.
We are both at the mercy of people,
Yeah.
and we are
Yeah.
also both at the mercy of the government. In a way, the law is
Exactly.
not very, it can be fluid, right? It can go any
Hmm.
direction, right?
Hmm.
Even for
Yeah.
example, you see this caste census, right? Today the judgment has come. The court said it is sort of not legal, right?
Hmm.
Now, if it is not legal, I mean, this sorry, the reservation beyond 50%. I mean, which basically destroys the idea of the caste census. The point is, I don't have any opinion on caste census. I mean, I have different opinions, but not related to this. But my
Hmm.
point is, suppose this idea was legally wrong, right? It's like a black and white proving one not equals to two kind of thing. Then
Hmm.
this could have come before the election as well, right?
Hmm.
Why it has to wait for the 4th June for this verdict to come, right?
Hmm.
So that sort of questions are sort of very possible in this case.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying.
Sir, shouldn't we like the way you started? You of course went into a lot of nuance, but your answer started with saying that laws are too centralized and too uniform, and it should not work that way. Shouldn't
Hmm.
we completely forget this idea? Absolutely, the idea
Hmm.
that laws don't work equally for everyone, because
Hmm.
and at the end of the day, today we are not in the pre-nation state era anymore. When it is a nation state, up until it's a nation state, uniformity of law has to be there. All nuances
Hmm.
come later on.
So that is why I was talking about the decentralization. So the problem is I could describe a part of the reality that is suitable for 50 years later, right? Now,
Hmm.
right now, if you talk about the in a war time, so suppose you think it's
Yeah.
like Shakti, it's a great upheavals
Yeah.
are happening, social changes are happening.
Right.
Now, my description of the reality makes no
Hmm.
sense. In a
Yeah.
wartime, generals do whatever makes them win the war.
Yeah. Yeah.
Whatever you postulate 50 years down the lane, who cares about it, right?
Hmm.
So from that point of view, if UCC is seen as a
Hmm.
sort of so what is happening now?
Hmm.
We have removed the physical violence, but of course we have not cultivated ahimsa. So
Hmm.
himsa is happening in a mental plane, and
Yeah.
it is manifesting in different times in the election, right? Election
Yeah.
season most, or but every day Twitter there's a war zone, right? Twitter with hashtags you will do it and all this kind of thing. If you go to
Hmm.
the prime time TV again, it's another war zone, right? Again, there people are fighting which language to use and all these kind of things, right?
Hmm.
So Hingsa is definitely happening, but may
Hmm.
not be in the physical direction. But of course, the other direction it is very much happening, right? So
Yeah.
because it is happening so much, and then all these things are, uh, and that is why it is all these laws and everything. It is sort of part of the word in a way, mental word,
Right.
and they are the. I mean, I'm not a general, so maybe I do not have too much opinion. Should not have too much opinion as a scholar, right?
Hmm.
That's what I think about. But of course,
Right.
if you talk about uniformity, I have this philosophical answer. No?
Yeah. Sir, this is a question from a viewer, which
Hmm.
has
I
been
think I can
asked
read it.
and
Yeah. In
answered.
their argument is Hinduism secular, nothing to
Yeah.
attain in Hindurashtra.
Yeah.
No. Yeah, again, here, I think this person, Buddhadev Bhattacharya archives,
Hmm.
what he is saying, or he or she is saying, yeah,
Hmm.
sure. No, but the problem is the secular is wrong. The secular, that is secular, the word secular means non-religious construct. Non-religious construct, right? Something fundamentally religious is not secular. But the way in India ideas are called secular, they actually are coming from secularized Christianity.
Yeah,
So
in this
they
case, he just means secularism. By secularism, he means acceptance or tolerance of other religions. So,
huh,
therefore, hypothetical Hindu Rashtra would mean just getting rid of Waqf board and bringing in UCC, and that would mean Hindu Rashtra. Is that it? Or Hindu Rashtra
no,
would mean something more?
no, that's what I think we
Right.
started somewhere there, but got
Yeah.
deviated.
Yeah.
Hinduras to mean the Satya and Ahimsa has to prevail in every
Yeah.
affair, and
Yeah.
that's not an easy task. That's not
Yeah.
an easy task.
Yes.
Um, so basically, if you see in a way, Satya and Ahimsa and all this kind of way. So many of the secular ideas are actually anti-Satya and
Yes.
anti-sort of Ahimsa. I mean,
Yes.
that is what is happening. I
Hmm.
think there is a reason, right? That a lot secular in a sort of way has become a lot of not a very good word, and they are
Hmm.
using a different word nowadays. I think Congress, for example, it's the icon of secularism. Even they don't use secular word that much nowadays.
Hmm.
This sort of.
Hmm.
And people who get actually the secular award and all these kind of things, I don't think they people take them very seriously on secular icons or anything like that. I mean, yeah.
Hmm. Right. Now, sir, what would be the economic vision of a government of this hypothetical Hindu Rashtra?
So again, this is a really a difficult question. Because
Hmm.
when are you talking about? Are you talking about 5 years? So let me tell you, sir. We
Hmm.
ask me, right? Hindurashtra 1 to 10. Somewhere, where are we? I think we are
Yeah.
at 5. We can go back to 0. We can go back to 10. So we are sort of the borderline there. I mean, um, yeah. So it's not either way very strong. There are different both directions we can go on. Now,
Hmm.
economic vision, if you are talking about right now, economic vision, or you are talking about 10 years later, just tell me a
Let,
context. I'll try to give it to you.
let's say we have achieved a situation where this Hindu Rashtra is possible not just on paper, where a lot of people are ready actually to execute a Hindu Rashtra in their personal lives as well. When, let's say, Mahabharata, Ramayana is being taught in college classrooms, there are courses on degree level, PhD level courses on Ramayana, Mahabharata. Let's say
Mhm.
a more Hindu aware society has been achieved 10 years from now, at least, let's say 15 years from now. And
Uh,
what do those people do with economics then? What
all right.
would they be doing in doing right? How would a good Hindu behave back then, in that time, in the realm of economics? How much freebie would they have? How much welfare would they have, and for whom? How much would they give the leeway to the market, etc.?
So again, the moment you do centralization, freebies are inevitable, because you cannot see
Yeah,
the. So basically, there's a saying, right? The weakest link of the chain. So the chain is as strong as the weakest link.
exactly.
Similarly, our society is just as strong as the most marginalized people, because
Yes.
these people. So I mean, this is why I sort of attribute Gandhiji some value as teacher.
Hmm.
Of course, I have a lot of disagreements with political
Hmm.
ideas, as you can. Yeah,
Hmm.
but the problem is the moment you these marginalized people gets very angry, then basically this entire structure starts to fall away. That's how it happens in all civilizations.
Yeah,
Now,
this is also Jordan Peterson's idea that there will always be hierarchies. Hierarchies are inevitable, but
Mhm.
hierarchies do become corrupt, and you should not let it become so corrupt that the people on the bottom rung become so frustrated that they burn down the hierarchy itself.
That is the idea. That is what the idea of the NV basically is. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's how this NV works. Yeah. Now,
yeah.
problem is so in a Hindu view of the world. So this is the most important thing before economics and everything. The elite, they have to be morally most impeccable. So if you go to our elite was Kshatriyas or
Hmm.
Brahmins, you might think about, if you, I
Yeah.
mean, think in knowledge wise. But they used to practice most strenuous kind of sadhanas, right? If you think about the Arjuna and Rama, they take panavasas and all these kind of things,
Right.
person, right? So my economic vision, I think that first thing has to be there, that economically, of course, I think we don't want so much atrocities on nature if you want a sustainable world.
Hmm.
Now, how would you achieve it? To achieve it real terms, not like a few synthetic ideas, in real terms, we have to cut down consumption in each of us. We
Yes.
get to need to get more pleasure out of non-consumption things like community life, which we sort of lost now, right? I mean, it started in the 1970s and 80s when these TVs came. People, before that, there was a culture that when it's evening, people used to go together, talk about it,
There
family
was
function.
power cut half the day. You have to be a part of your community
That is
anyway.
also there,
Yeah.
yeah. But in a real terms, but then
Yeah.
sort of the good, I mean, the bad thing of development is that we lost that culture, and
Right.
this community is gone, and so people used to derive a lot of pleasure by talking and opening themselves out. That part is gone now, right? Nowadays we
Hmm.
call people before going to their home. That was never the case when Naipaul
Yeah.
came here in India, 1970s and 90s. We will just barge in other people's place, and that's, I mean, they can, women, they can go to the kitchen.
That
So
unannounced guest is the literal translation for Atithi. Atithi is someone who did not tell
that
you
is
the
also
Atithi. Yeah.
you're so
Yeah.
right. So
Yeah.
the thing is now, but that is kind of gone now. So that has to be revived. So it is not only Ramayana Mahabharata, it is also the communal life, community life, and all these kind of things has to be revived, right? That's the
Right.
first thing. Second
Right.
is cultivation of arts. We have like a literally scores, maybe hundreds of arts. 64 are prominent,
Yeah.
six arts, but there are more beyond that. That
Hmm.
has to be revived because people get their pleasure out of arts. I mean, so I may not have any money, but the point that I'm just singing and I'm just doing some, good art painting, or maybe I'm just doing some good writing or some memorizing recitation, all gives me pleasure, right? So that has to be cultivated so that people can have a very different way of expressing themselves.
Hmm.
Now, once all these things are coming, so this is an idealized picture, right? 20 years, 30 years down the lane. Now, I
Yeah.
mean, if you are really ambitious, here we are being ambitious, I think. Now, so basically, then in that point of time, I think in a sort of way, we have too much inequality. So problem wealth inequality. I mean, it is equality itself is not desirable. I don't think that's a very. So it's like, I give an analogy. Let me give you an analogy. Suppose you seek happiness, you will never get happiness because the moment you seek happiness, you become slave to many other things.
Yes.
So happiness is sort of a byproduct. If you have a good goal in your life, you will be happy, even though you are not exactly pursuing happiness.
Hmm.
So it's the same idea. I have a similar idea here. If
Sir,
you are giving,
actually, I did want to ask this to you at some other point. I didn't even remember
Hmm,
this question. This actually is
hmm,
very relevant at the moment. So
hmm,
I don't think most people are even aware of what they mean by happiness, what they actually want. They don't even realize that themselves. Plus, there is a
hmm,
huge confusion about what is fun versus what is happiness versus what is satisfaction. So,
hmm.
what would be the perfect translations for these things in the Sanskrit world? I think only then we can get to real conclusions, because Ananda is not happiness, I guess, right?
Anand
What
is
would be
again.
Ananda?
So again, this is the Maslow's sort of like five layers of reality, right? I mean,
Okay.
physical. So basically, this is I mean, this I think this is a speculation, but it's a very good speculation. This is that literal translation of Annamoy, Pranomoy, Monomoy,
Yeah,
Bigyanmoy,
yeah.
Anandamoy, right? This idea basically.
Hmm.
So Ananda that you said is basically the top kind of happiness, right? So
Hmm.
those who are self-actualizing themselves, we have it. All of us have it, different amounts. But of course, this is more philosophers and sort of people like kings, philosopher kings. They're dominated by that, right?
Hmm.
Not normal people. They're happy with the just with the food and other things, and there's no big trace in their life, right? Onnomoy and pranomoy sort of things. Then
Hmm.
monomoy comes the kola part, right? This kind of art culture. So
Yeah.
I'm trying to say that definitions are also there. So
Hmm.
because we have different kinds of sukhas,
Yeah.
different kind of kosas,
Right.
and different kinds of dikshas coming with that kind of kosas. So,
Yes.
and we also roughly divide them into three parts. It's called Adi Bhautik, Adi Doibik, and Adhyatmik. So basically, Adi Bhautik is basically Annomoy Pranomoy plane. Adi
Right.
Doibik is sort of like Monomoy plane.
Right.
Adhyatik is like Vigyanmoy Anandamoy plane. So that is sort
Okay.
of the
Okay.
idea. Now,
Hmm.
of course, we can go into much detail on that, but that's a different topic altogether. But
Hmm.
what I'm trying to say that right now the social recognition demands you get pleasure out of consumption, out of imitating this and that.
Hmm.
That has to be changed. Social norms will always be there, but that has to be changed such that you get pleasure out of doing some art forms. You get pleasure doing some selfless service for others, nishkam karma or
Yes.
kala, or you
Yes.
get pleasure from the communities, right?
Right.
And basically, so all these things are acceptable, right? Family and other things.
Yeah.
Again, these three norms also have a name. We call it Pitri Yagya, Deva
Oh.
Jagga, and Rishi Jagga, right? I mean, so Rishi is
Okay.
basically knowledge and kalas, right? Deva
Hmm.
is basically selfless action and governance,
Right.
and Pitri is basically your own family and community.
Yeah.
So all
Sir.
this is
Yeah. Yeah. Go
huh?
ahead.
Yeah, huh.
Sir, you see, the people who are farthest removed from Hinduism, real teachings
Mm-hmm.
of Hinduism, are
Mm-hmm.
already having to revert back to these kinds of methods anyway. Whether it be the be LA of USA, New York of USA, or even Mumbai, Kolkata of India, because you see,
Mm-hmm.
now there are cafes where you can just go and paint different cups and pots and stuff. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I was lucky where my parents did not have a problem with me becoming a musician, but most people's parents did not want them to become artists, so they were
Mm-hmm.
forced into becoming engineers or preparing for the IAS, because the
Mm-hmm.
government jobs are that lucrative, because it's a corrupt
Mm-hmm.
socialist system anyway. Now
Mm-hmm.
those people who have let go of that crazy lifestyle, which was not becoming, not remaining sustainable for them, now they are
Mm-hmm.
getting into selfless acts like, let's say, animal care, animal rescue, pet dog rescue, donating to PETA and stuff, becoming
Mm-hmm.
activists, which is why the demand, or let's say the popularity of wokeism. Everyone wants to stand up for anyone who thinks that is disadvantaged,
Mm-hmm.
and therefore things like taking up art, painting, they're trying to reinvent the Hindu wheel only. but without, of course,
So,
giving credit to Hinduism or learning anything from Hinduism. So,
so, so
would
I'll
you
go
say
back.
that?
Huh.
Would
Yeah,
you
yeah,
say
please,
that
please.
therefore these things are going to come back? Is there therefore a pretty good possibility that Hindu Rashtra will happen?
So basically, again, Hinduism is not something that we specially develop. It will automatically develop
Exactly.
anywhere where people have
Exactly.
material prosperity, right?
Yeah.
So in India, it is a very good geography, and we
Hmm.
have very reasonable, sustainable material prosperity from so many thousands of years. That's
Right.
how we sustainably develop them. Now,
Hmm.
West, that's where before this technological revolution was more impoverished place, and that's
Hmm.
how they lost all of those things, right? Now they are
Yeah.
getting back a lot of prosperity and all these kind of things. And if
Right.
don't have any imperialistic theory, then they have to go
Yes.
back to here. That's the only
Yes.
way people can live, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that sense, it is universal. This idea of
Exactly.
dharma is coming from inside. It is not coming from
Exactly.
outside, right?
Yes. Which is why the
So
popularity of places like Auroville among all the drugged out liberal hippies, they now want to go and live peacefully in a community without
So
electricity,
only
just
problem with
peacefully.
this, only problem is that these people, they when they are woke, they go for some activism. When they are seeking Auroville, they think the entire world is a Auroville. So
Yeah.
that sort of understanding is again unreal. So
Yeah.
that is again not dharma, right? Like I've
Yeah.
given the example of so that value system has to come, value system. And unfortunately it is me being the biggest supporter of environmental things. I mean, I don't switch on fans, and people get pissed off with me for not doing that. I said I do my share of saving electricity.
Yeah.
So but then I mean, that sense I'm most hated person for many people who know me.
Hmm.
So but the problem is that in spite of all these things, I will say that India must now get $10 trillion, his own education system decolonized, and an ICBM, intercontinental ballistic missile, to get Hindurashtra. Because unless you have these three things, nobody is going to listen to your values. Once you are having this, people will listen to you, and then you
Yeah.
can actually tame Ahimsa and these things away.
Yes. Sir, my next question is about Jati Varna, mainly
Yeah.
Jati. So you
Uh-huh.
you made a great point, which I think makes sense completely, that Jatis were could be essentially guilds, and I
Mhm.
also think that castes are essentially status groups. So
Mhm.
I think both are true. Both can be true at the same time. They were just guilds, but based on
Mhm.
how valuable that profession or the product coming out of that profession is in society, that's how
Mhm.
that's the kind of status you get in society.
Mhm.
So, my first question is, what is the difference between a guild and a union? Because it has always seemed to me that Jati is essentially a profession solidarity, which is why it made sense to me very much that Sanjeev Sanyal, when he criticized the IAS profession in a way indirectly, that why are you spending so much time preparing for the IAS? Sanjay Dikshit, a retired IAS officer who criticizes the bureaucracy vehemently, he got very angry. He took it personally. He was showing his
Uh,
Jati solidarity at the moment without knowing about it.
right. So his
So,
Jati Dharma prevailed over the other dharmas.
yeah,
Yeah, which is
yes,
completely commendable idea. Yeah,
yeah,
and of course Sanjeev Shanal also, I think, I don't know, he's also coming from such Jati only, but of course he might have different ideas himself.
right, yeah,
Now this thing is the way I see it actually. Yeah, of course there's guilds and unions. I mean, I think a lot of sense these divisions are depends on the circumstances, geographies, and all the other things.
yeah.
But
What would
what
be the nature of such ideas of jatis or guilds in this future hypothetical Hindu Rashtra? Because
Hindurashtra,
at the end of the
right?
day, we know now that unions are also a bad thing, and we know
Hmm.
caste has also led to discrimination. Okay, let's say any high status group would always discriminate against a low status group. So
Hmm.
here we had some extra, let's say, codified situations, sanctions, or even observances which people took as recommendations, that okay, if you are from this superior high status group guild, you now behave extremely bad towards a lower status group guild. And plus we know unions are also bad. So in this future hypothetical Hindu Rashtra, should we get rid of these, or are we shouldn't we try to get rid of these things completely?
So the point is, see, the thing is that Jati and other things. This is quoted by Manu in
Hmm.
his book Manusmriti, but
Hmm.
it also existed even before Manu in a way.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
No
and
one could
Manu
have
is just trying to
come up with it one fine morning that okay,
one fine
from
morning,
tomorrow
right? Uh,
you'll follow jati.
so the problem is now the education system is too theoretical now. Now, what I see that these kids, they study engineering till the age of 21 or so, 22 maybe some cases,
Yeah.
and then they don't do anything. They have to now think about what I'll do, and I'll take another course or something and do something, right? So this is actually a stupid. I mean, in a way, we are losing a lot of precious years by
Absolutely.
giving them theoretical education. Now,
Absolutely.
in a Hindurashtra, people should not have whatever Hindurashtra means, but should not actually waste their time. They should get, if you are really going to for livelihood, then there should be mapping. I think one nice thing Chandrababu Naidu recently said, that there should be skill census. So we should
Yeah.
develop a certain system. What are the
Yeah.
skills that are required? How we are
Yeah.
going to sharpen those skills and matching those skills from the school level, so that they seamlessly go from school to the profession very seamlessly. And this could only happen in sort of novice or apprenticeship kind of system. And then you can see the jati is coming very naturally, right? So the person who is doing some apprenticeship in a very particular profession, he is becoming adopted to that jati. Whether you want to make it birth based or not, the society has to take a call. Both have pros and cons.
Sir,
Birth based
birth
system.
based is also inevitable because the father is also always going to think that my son should go into my profession because I already know so much about it. Me being a musician, while not being from a musician family, know that I spent 10 years finding out things about the industry which people in the music families knew already. How to handle rejection, how to react when someone says that your song is not good, make changes to it. All those skills are already known by people in musician families. So even family based, birth based things are going to be inevitable anyway. Do we codify them into law or not?
I don't believe in laws like in for most cases,
Yeah.
like the laws nowadays mean. I think there should be laws should be like social customs. Well, exceptions could happen. Now some
Exactly.
exceptions are glorious. People taking a
Exactly.
sannyas, right? That's an
Yeah.
exception.
Yeah.
But that he has to suffer because of that exception by giving up
Yeah.
his pleasure and everything, right?
Yes.
Some
Yes.
exception is bad, maybe punishable, like taking stealing and other things. That society should recommend as mild as possible punishment, but try to deter that behavior. So
Right.
that is the idea of the law for me. Now, Jati Varna, I think both has plus and minuses, this birthplace and not. I mean, in the birthplace system, as you are rightly saying, that people have a lot of security and all these kind of things, and of course, they get human capital transfers happen from
Yes.
one generation to another generation.
Yeah.
The negative thing is basically someone exceptionally talented musicians are there. The name is not coming to my mind, but this person was basically was a wrestler. He's coming from a wrestling family, but he was a classical. His instrument. I mean, a name will come
Okay.
to me, Jasraj or something from Allahabad.
I
So
see.
basically, he was a standalone person. He's not coming from a musician family. You're right. Most of the musicians they have music in their genes, but there are exceptions, and those people are sort of have to struggle. That's a
Yeah.
problem. But in the other
Yeah.
system, what happens? People don't know what employment to take. So basically, there's a unemployment and insecurity for people, and that
Yes.
makes people do a lot of crimes. Both have pluses and minuses. The collective wisdom of the people let them decide what to do, but the kind of
Exactly.
so what have become jati and caste has become a atrocity literature for the Christians a lot of the time, and now we have digested completely that colonialist constructs, and we are kind of telling ourselves that jati is bad, jati is bad, jati is bad. That's the problem. Problem is everything has some positive and negative aspects. So the jati also has to be discussed in that kind of light, that it has some positive, some negative. But nowadays it has become a curse word. That's what my problem is. That's
Yeah.
not a healthy debate or healthy analysis.
Yeah, yeah. People who say casteism is bad line up to vote on the basis of what MLA they get for the whether the local politician played caste equations right or not. So those people are not to be taken
No, no,
seriously
even
anyway.
in academia. So let's say my
Right.
professor who are cursing
Yeah.
this casteism is bad. Now, they are going to social occasions of the auto driver? They are not going. They are only going
Yeah.
to the social occasions of our fellow professor. So in a way,
Yeah.
they also believe in a caste, but it's a different kind of caste.
Yeah.
So
So yes, like most Bengali leftist PhDs who hate casteism, but 99% of them are Brahmins at the end of the day. How is this
right.
happening? Did they actively prevent Shudras from getting a PhD? Why or why couldn't they take steps that only had Shudras as PhD? Why did
I think
ultimately
they are
Bengali?
rather smart people. They
Yeah,
understood that the Jamana of the Brahmins have gone. Now we have to hijack it this way. I,
yeah. So, sir, what do you think of unions? Let's say if this jati profession solidarity thing, or a guild
Hmm.
in the end
Hmm.
is also inevitable, shouldn't we
Hmm.
take steps to break it away, or dissolve these things, for the very reason that we have always seen that unions lead to bad outcomes?
So
Let
again,
me just elaborate on this one example,
hmm.
hilarious example in USA,
Hmm.
that when Joe Biden came to power,
Hmm.
he organized a sort of a like get together for all the EV manufacturers. He
Hmm.
wanted these EV things to have grow more, EV industry to grow more because it's good for the environment, etc. Guess who he didn't invite? He didn't invite Elon Musk, the father of EVs in USA. Okay, why?
Hmm.
Because Democratic Party is heavily funded by the auto worker unions, and Elon
Hmm.
Musk does not allow unions in his company. Now the
Hmm.
funnier part is that
Hmm.
GM and all the other companies who allow unions there,
Uh-huh.
the people who have the collective bargaining power,
Hmm.
they make, let's say, $8 in theory.
Hmm.
They may be asked for $10, they get $8 in theory. Whereas
Hmm.
in Elon Musk's company, they get
Hmm.
$6 in theory. Okay.
Hmm.
Even though
Hmm.
they asked for $10, but Elon Musk didn't allow $10, since that guy doesn't have collective bargaining power, he gets $6. Okay. The hilarious part is the guy who gets $8 in theory has to donate $4 to the union because of the union party office, infrastructure, activism, placards, lawyers, everything. So that guy goes home with $4. So unions are always bad. So what do we do about jatis if they are unions or guilds then?
So actually, okay, here is the thing. Unions are bad if you are thinking from the point of view of capital, because for us, capital means more development, right? And that's why we want more capital to come. And
Hmm.
unions are, of course, anti that, because
Hmm.
and unions want status quo, right? And there are some businessmen unions as well, right? Like these Marwaris. It's sort of also union among the, it is proverbial Marwaris. They have sort of a,
Yes.
like a merchants association, merchants union among themselves. That
Yes.
also wants to keep the status quo, right?
Yeah.
Uh, So in a way, I would say that if you have a Jati system, the power of the unions will increase, because what will happen, these jatis, they will have their own strengths, and because they are also connected by social connection. Right now it is only about elections and all these kind of things, but then social connections will increase in a way, and then that will make their more powerful. But the problem is that, so the but unions won't be only about extracting money. It could be a lot of a social kind of a situation where jatis will fight, right? So I'm not going to suggest you a very, so this is what this Tom Sowell says. uh, the left has a brilliant vision. In the leftist vision, everything is going to be ever peaceful and everybody will live peacefully ever after.
Yeah.
And because this is he calls it the unconstrained vision. Because it
Hmm.
is unconstrained vision, people fall for it, they love it. The right, and I don't know, I don't want to call me right, but of course I'm not left, and
Hmm.
nowadays everything that is not left has become right.
Yeah.
From that point of view, I have a very constant vision. I'm
Hmm.
not saying that we are going to solve all the problems ever after, but
Exactly.
what we are trying to do is going to increase the lifespan of our species as much as possible. So that
Hmm.
is what the dharma is all about. That is what sustainability is all about.
Hmm.
And from that point of view, there will be this kind of tussles between different jatis and all these kind of things. And
Hmm.
unfortunately, I would say that when the increase in community life, the power of the jatis will increase. And
Hmm.
but this is not only in the, but this will not be only in the restricted to production. It could have multiple kind of different dimensions. But at the same time, the focus on money will be little less. Focus on money will be little less, so it will not be about a monetary tussle. It could be a tussle
Okay.
about honor, right? Who will be honored fast, and all these kind of status things will come in different ways.
Yeah. Then we'll again have a rejuvenation of the honor killing problems. Then maybe, okay, IAS girl marries
Honor
a
killings may not
musician.
happen, huh?
Yeah. Yeah. Go on. Go on.
No, I mean, honor killings is sort of a very
The worst
bad sort of
possible. Yeah.
what's possible kind of thing.
Yeah.
But basically, I think the what will happen, that excommunication, right? So
Right.
basically, someone getting someone out from the jati, it has become a
Ostracization.
completely meaningless now,
Right.
because now it means nothing. If you go to urban area, it means nothing. Not nothing will happen. But then
Yeah.
that will become a powerful weapon. As
Yeah.
a matter of fact, in India, if you see the thing, very few people become Christian when British were here, because power was not with the Raj, power is not with the king, power
Hmm.
was with the society. They could excommunicate someone and whatever, we become close to whatever, doesn't matter really, right?
Hmm.
So from that point of view, basically the power is to rest with the people, and that excommunication was a big tool that will come back again. So
Right.
you see, nothing is perfectly good or
Yeah.
perfectly bad. But what
Right.
I'm trying to say is this much centralization is not good for harmonious living, dharma. We need to have a decentralized living in the long run.
Hmm.
When that long run will come, I don't know. Maybe I'll be dead. Uh, I hope I'm not, but
No, no. Yeah.
it's possible.
Sir, we have a viewer asking a question here. He's saying
Uh-huh.
Indian law treats Atman and individual interchangeably. That's
Mhm.
how Ganga dolphins have natural rights.
Mhm.
Personal
Mhm.
laws forces an adharmic framework on the Atman. Then how
Mhm.
is UCC adharmic? Or let's say Uniform Civil Code adharmic? It is dharma.
So what Sastriji is saying, I mean, I kind of agree with him a lot. So basically, the moment you have the laws are based on nature and all the ideas, like so a lot of the resources, natural resources, will be. So there's a very great example from Chile. Chile, so there's a lot of fisheries in the world, and they are all facing collapse. In fact, 80 to 85% fisheries are collapsing because too
Okay.
many people fish, and then basically they take the young ones, and the entire thing, population sort of um, goes beyond any sort of sustainable number. Now there is a very difficult problem. This is called the problem of the natural resources. This is property, common property resources, very difficult problem.
Hmm.
But this was solved very well by Chile. How Chile solved it? They made a cooperative of fishermen, and they give the cooperative exclusive right to fish a kind of fishery.
Hmm.
And this fishery is now going very strong for 30 years.
Hmm.
Before it collapsed, but now it is going very, very strong because this society sort of owns it, they takes care of it. So
Right.
this is like a jati, right? This fisherman's
Yeah.
property is like a jati, and they're protecting it very well,
Yeah.
which is what happened with this example.
Hmm.
Now, so basically, but now problem with UCC, okay, at one end, of course, the personal law itself is a problem. For example,
Yes.
uh, so I mean, I
Especially
don't
in a
know,
nation state setting.
nation state setting and also in a very personal way. So, for example, um, I don't know how far rebellious can I be in this channel. I don't know. You are open for a rebellious statements.
and
Then I
and
could go
you
on that.
you yourself gave the example of the Yasmin Muhammad case also, which is basically like that only, that
Huh?
she is
But I'm
getting
not
abused
going.
at home.
I was
Yeah, yeah,
at
go
home,
on.
and that's the problem. But that
Yeah,
is more to do with these cultural ideas and everything. But I'm saying in a
yeah.
very much more different manner. So, see,
Hmm.
for example, in some context,
Hmm.
we kind of think that monogamy is sort of the acceptable thing.
Right.
Now, but of course, everybody equally monogamous is sort of a impractical idea, right? So
Hmm.
then you are basically saying that some relationship you have to call it illegal, and some
Hmm.
other relationship you have to call it legal, right?
Hmm.
Again, this is a Christian idea that
Hmm.
basically some are true, some are false.
Hmm.
Right? I mean,
Yeah.
this America, there is a polyamory association. I mean, there's a lot of
Yeah.
problem with that, with their idea, and a lot of times it is a lot of workism and
Yes. Yes.
license to basically self pleasure only without
Yeah, which is why
exploitation.
a lot of conservative Christians these days think that all that hedonism is coming from Hinduism, because
Huh.
they read all the BS translations of Hindu texts and come up with the LA kind of liberalism, and Christian conservatives blame even that on us only.
So one problem is that this is like this idea. If you don't understand it, kill it. So because they don't understand paganism, how we can have not a very rigid code still live beyond all over the year. They sort
Hmm.
of think, well, these people must be something bad. We don't understand it.
Yeah.
Yeah. But but I'm saying there is some bit of truth also to them, that you
Hmm.
just restrict some all these kind of things and just restrict one law for all. So that sort of thing is actually problematic. It creates a scope for cheating and asatya and all these kind of things.
Hmm.
So that is a problematic statement, and of course, from that sense of any uniform imposition is a problem for me.
I
But then
agree.
again, if you think about UCC, the way it is, so personal law is a problem because you're imposing a particular norm and other thing. So that's the problem. But then uniform code also an imposition. Both are impositions. Now, which is good, which is bad? It depends on the context. Uh, so at the moment, we Hindus were not very worried because we know
Hmm.
that Hindi UCC will be simply the Hindu code, but for all in some sense of the term, right?
Hmm.
Uh, those who are worried, they may have their own prejudices.
Yes.
that they are not encountering at all. It is very much possible.
Yes.
And possibly it is also possible that they could go closer to truth, closer to face their prejudices with
Hmm.
the, impuses being imposed upon. So if
Hmm.
that outcome really happens, it's a good outcome.
Hmm.
But I don't know how the implementation will happen, how it will happen. I mean, I'm just an academician and scholar. I don't
Yeah.
say political words. I just, so from that point of
Yeah.
view, I just,
Yeah. Sir, what do you think of reservations the way it is today? And what
hmm,
do you think reservations should be in that hypothetical Hindurashtra? And should there
hmm.
be any reservation at all? And do you think reservation is a big problem or not today? How much do you take that historical injustice argument seriously?
No, I don't. Historic injustice, I don't take too seriously, because
Hmm.
anyway, those who say historic injustice, they only restrict it to caste domain. They don't
Yes.
go to religion and other domains. All
Right.
the historic injustices also, no.
Right.
So there's a problem in the argument itself. But
Hmm.
what I will say, that now the education has become too theoretical. Now, a lot
Hmm.
of people who actually come from the jatis, and of course, these jatis and what you do could be in the genes also, right? I mean, we don't know, right, how the gene works, how information is stored. So, it is possible they are actually bad in theoretical domain because they are coming from that kind of jatis, and that's why they flunk a few exams. Doesn't mean that they are incapable, right? I
Hmm.
mean, qualification for a job should not be entirely theoretical. It should be a
Hmm.
lot of character content, integrity of character. It should be a lot of efficiency, devotion, and all these issues. So it
Hmm.
is possible that those who are getting reservation, some of them at least could be discriminated because of these reasons. And that if it really reservation could correct it, it's a good outcome. Now, problem is that people don't understand this. They take reservation too seriously and trying to construct a lot of theoretical identities around castes. That doesn't exist at all. So they are just trying to create a lot of new notions for really and Jadov unity and all these kind of things.
Hmm.
Those kind of mega unities never was there. So that is a problematic, imposition.
Hmm.
So I'm not saying the reservation is entirely bad,
Hmm.
but it is possible that it has passed the scope of, as good it was or not.
Hmm.
I don't have the data on integrity of people and all these kind of things, but I
Hmm.
actually have observed a lot of times people who are actually getting selected based on written exam,
Hmm.
they are clearing the written part well, theory part well, but in other character traits they are all out of deficient, and that could be actually a lot of the times better for the people who are coming from more marginalized communities. But of course, if you are claiming that IS officers' words are, discriminated and all these kind of things, or I am professors' words are discriminated, I'm not
Hmm.
going to say this is a bullshit. I can't say that's kind of the story.
Hmm.
So I'm not. So this is a lot of these things. Second thing is the reservation. The problem of reservation is, again, as I told you again and again, it is
Hmm.
because of centralization. The moment you delegate the responsibility to the very local level, then you will see the people will choose the most capable person overall. I mean, maybe not always, but on an average and all.
And there has
So
to be different kinds of there has to be a huge volume of different kinds of jobs which are
uh,
all with reasonably good pay. There can't be just one job called IAS and doctor, so everyone goes for that, and therefore we need reservations, therefore that,
but
and then that
again,
reservation logic
but this
gets
is
extrapolated into everything.
I completely agree. But this is again,
Hmm.
this problem is coming because it's theory driven idea. Someone
Hmm.
who is cleaning the drains very
Yeah.
thoroughly and most proficient manner, he
Hmm.
deserves. And suppose someone can look at the Suez system of Calicut very well.
Hmm.
I think he deserves more money than I do. But then
Hmm.
that's not the case, right? Right now.
Yeah.
Even if
Yeah.
you know the Suez system of Calicut or Kolkata very well, you may
Hmm.
not get as good pay as I am getting. So there is a
Yeah.
problem there. But that problem is not reservation. That problem is more focused on theory-driven understanding rather
Hmm.
than this kind of understanding. In fact,
Hmm.
historically, Brahmins, they are poor people. They used to
Hmm.
be respected, but that respect was not the only currency they used to get. Monetarily,
Hmm.
they were not very. They are not doing well before the British time when they had to leave their occupation.
Well, even before that, they did get land grants. Some jatis inside the Brahmin Varna from some kings did get land grants from
No,
time
no,
to
all
time.
Brahmins got land grants, but
Hmm.
land grants only not only for them. They
Hmm.
have to. They all the students will come. Brahmins
Hmm.
cannot take any money from them. So
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
commercialization of education was not there. So that
Yes.
land was feeding those students and taking care of them. So of course they get a lot
Right.
of labors also through the students, but
Hmm.
definitely there's a lot of expenses also, right?
Right. Sir, I just want one clarification. You just said that that anyone who knows the sewer systems kind of in a moral way deserves to get paid more than you. But in the end, no matter what's the name of the system, whether it's called socialist or not, whether it's called capitalist or not, in the end, people's salaries will depend on how rare that person is, isn't it? There are always going to be less people with the skills of you. There are always going to be less people with who have PhDs from Rochester versus who can actually learn the skills to find
No,
out
but then
more
again,
about the sewer system
no,
of
again,
Calicut.
Niranjan, there's a problem. You are measuring everything in unidimensional way.
Okay.
Our system of compensation was never unidimensional. The
Okay.
compensation system has many layers. Sudras were kind of, a lot of the times, very rich people, because, I mean, very prosperous people, because they have the lands. Sudras used to own most of the lands. Brahmins used to be granted land. He never had land of his own, right? Because he's not a really, probably profession, he's a farmer. But
Yeah.
the Sudras, they had that. But other end, the Brahmins used to get a lot of respect in King's Court and everyone for this character, but
Yeah.
that Sudras are not getting. So the compensation is not very unidimensional. Secondly, because we are not giving these people enough deserved as they deserve based on their skills, you will not get good plumbers nowadays. You will not get good these things nowadays. Technology has solved to an extent, because technology has replaced some of these domains, and you
The
don't
good
need
plumbers are all in UAE and Saudi Arabia, where the economy is
exactly.
better.
No, but then we could give good plumbing education from the 8th class onwards, or something like that, and we can get good plumbers, right? People could. I mean, in
Yeah.
America.
There I would say, sir, doesn't the let's say we don't have the caste system today, but the remnants or the ruins of the caste system in our mind still hampered us from taking up these kinds of jobs, which doesn't really happen in USA.
So, because on one end, of course, this caste system, this false pride or whatever you say, but second thing is also monetarily they have to be compensated. That is also not coming that much. So I'm saying that's why there is a big problem with the
Yeah.
electrician. You'll not get a
Yeah.
good electrician. You'll not get a
Yes.
good plumber, right?
Yes. You are saying that in Kerala, it's absolutely the same in West Bengal as well. No one can fix anything. No one has any skill sets. Anything they
No, I
fix
have some experience.
will go out of order in 2-3 months again.
No, my father built a house. I
Okay.
had some experience on that, but
I
that
see.
was quite some time ago, maybe 2-3 decades ago. But I think
Hmm.
now things have become worsened. I think, yeah,
Hmm.
things
Right.
have worsened only. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, sir. This was a fascinating conversation. Thank you very much for joining us. And sir, now we are going to in the coming days we are going to do a Bengali podcast with you as well. Okay, sir. Are you
Oh, nice.
comfortable with
Will
Bengali?
you get a lot of listeners for Bengali
Yeah, yeah.
podcasts?
Yeah. Now I
That's
have pretty much a balance of Bengali and non-Bengali viewers on my channel.
Acha, you know
Yeah.
who are your. Okay.
Yeah.
Very
Yeah.
nice. And it
Yeah.
is always a pleasure to talk to you.
Thank you,
Wish
sir.
you all the best to your channel, and my best wishes to your viewers.
Thank you, sir. And guys, remember to buy the Majoritarian Myth book, okay? You'll never lose a debate after reading that book ever again with a commie, if you haven't bought it already. Thank you, sir. Thank you, guys. Thank you, sir. Good night.
Good night.
Thank you, guys. Good night. Bye-bye.
श्रवरूढं महाभीमं गुणाद्रष्टाङ्गरप्रदं हस्य युक्तं त्रिनेत्रं च कपालकर्णिकाकरां मुक्तकेशीं ललज्जयं पिबन्तीं रुधिरं चतुर्बाहु समायुक्तं वराभयकरं स्मरेत् चतुर्बाहु समायुक्तं वराभयकरं स्मरेत् काली काली महा